my own space station. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 301: The battle begins. Upon receiving the order, the command center immediately controlled 10 groups, totaling 100 drones, to take to the skies and rapidly fly towards the city. Shen Tuzhenghao also arrived at the command center, watching the screen with no obstructions. The situation within the city was completely visible indeed. Not a single person could be seen within the entire city. Relay the order to release all simulation spider robots to scout the entire city and search for any targets with vital signs. Shen Tuzhenghao ordered. Consequently, 60,000 robots poured out, rushing towards every corner of the city. The evenly distributed green dots on the screen indicated that the robots hadn't found a single living person either after half an hour. The entire city had been searched, and not even a rat or a zombie was found. Let's continue forward, Shen Tuzhenghao said, leaving the command center and returning to his vehicle after issuing the order. Once all the robots were retrieved, the troops began to move out. The tanks didn't bother teetering, directly bulldozing, crushing yard after yard under their tracks. The entire city of Kabula was directly reduced to ruins. After leaving Kabula, the troops slightly adjusted their direction, advancing towards Mandalay, another city 50 kilometers due north. The entire southern part of Ulan State is a vast Gobi Desert, sparsely populated to begin with. Now even more desolate. Along the way, they encountered no resistance. The tanks sped across the vast Gobi, kicking up clouds of dust at the same time. Dongfang Chen dispatched 50 special operations soldiers from the base. They flew in anti-gravity drones at high altitude, following Shen Tuzhenghao's troops from a distance. Another hour passed, and the troops arrived at Mandalay. Commander, something doesn't seem right here. In the command center, an officer said to Shen Tuzhenghao, who was beside him. Shen Tuzhenghao didn't speak, his eyes fixed on the screen. It was evident that Mandalay was much more developed than Kabula. In addition to the rows of yurts around the perimeter, there were also many buildings in the city center. Although the tallest of these buildings were only 5 or 6 stories high, it could indeed be considered a proper small city, even if it couldn't compare to a small county town in China. Commander, combat has begun, a soldier shouted. Shen Tuzhenghao turned to look at another screen. Sure enough, many robots on the screen were emitting red light. Send the drones over there and pull up the images, Yan Zhangping ordered. Soon, dozens of drones flew to the combat area, and the images appeared. The images showed countless Pikas, densely packed, attacking the robots. Transmit the images back to the country, Shen Tuzhenghao ordered. Yes, sir. Soon, Biology and several counselors waiting for news in the parliament buildings saw the combat scenes. This is completely different from the situation during the Yujing exercise, said Wu Shengrong of the Land Administration Department. That's right. These Pikas are actively attacking the robots, which means someone must be controlling them behind the scenes, said Xiang Yangping of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. It seems our deduction was correct, said Jiao Zizuo of the Supervisory Department. Everyone nodded, agreeing with this view. In the images, although nearby robots had come to reinforce, there were simply too many Pikas. They were small and fast, and the robots' rapid firing couldn't stop their advance. Soon, several robots were surrounded. The surrounded robots lost their attack targets and could no longer fire. This issue had been considered early in the design phase. The top of the surrounded robots rose by 2 centimeters, and 4 blades popped out. These 4 blades were distributed in 4 directions, like the blades used for crushing in a blender. The blades popped out and began to rotate at high speed, and the nearby Pikas were directly cut into pieces, with blood and flesh flying everywhere. After breaking free from their encirclement, the robots retracted their blades, closed the top cover, and quickly retreated, firing as they retreated. The counselors breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing this. It's a good thing they can handle it, or it would be embarrassing if they were all surrounded and killed, the counselors thought. Chirp, bang. Suddenly, a bomb flew over and landed among the robots. Instantly, many robots were blown away, followed by a second bomb, a third bomb. However, the robots with wireless communication were in pushovers. Either they dispatched a team to find the enemy who launched the bombs. However, it was too slow for them to find it on their own. The soldiers in charge of dispatching at the command center quickly defined a range and informed the main control system of the main search area, so the reconnaissance robots quickly approached the area. Soon, the target was found. The robots fired simultaneously, and the man holding the rocket launcher was shot dead, falling straight down from the third-floor window of the building. The crisis was resolved, and the reconnaissance robots returned to the attack formation, continuing to shoot at the Pikas on the other side. The tank units stationed outside the city were also under attack. Chapter 302, Cyborgs attack the command center. Enemy attack, someone shouted suddenly. A dozen figures appeared within the tank formation, rapidly approaching the command center. They appeared taller and sturdier than ordinary people, possessing immense strength, capable of withstanding tank impacts with their bare hands. Their leaping ability was extraordinary, able to jump onto the top of a tank with a single bound. Their movements were agile. Soldiers with submachine guns fired continuously, but struggled to hit them at such close range. The tanks were rendered useless for attack. Consequently, the surrounding tanks quickly converged, forming a steel barrier to prevent them from assaulting the command center. Unfortunately, the tank's maneuverability was too poor, and the figures were too agile. The steel barrier didn't provide much effective obstruction. However, this buffer bought them some time, enough for the headquarters' directly subordinate guard regiment, clad in combat suits, to arrive swiftly. Using several tanks as cover, they established a defensive formation around the command center. Almost simultaneously, the dozen attackers, having successfully breached the final tank defense line, arrived at the perimeter of the command center. They didn't immediately attack, and the guard regiment soldiers didn't immediately open fire inside the command center. Shen Tuzhenghao watched the scene on the screen, frowning. Inside the parliament building, these people are strange. Liu Fiang of the Military and Political Affairs Department said with a frown. What's strange? Tian Huameo of the Energy Department asked. Liu also knew that these people didn't look like normal people, but after all, he was a layman and couldn't figure it out. First of all, their physical abilities far exceed those of normal people, and their body size is also larger than that of normal people, Liu Fiang said. What does that prove? Tian Huameo could also see it, saying it was as good as saying nothing. The physical abilities of mutants can reach this level, but mutants generally do not have changes in body size, and their appearance is also the same as ordinary people, so these people should not be mutants either. Liu Fiang continued, I suddenly thought of something. The last time I interrogated a red-clothed sect holy envoy, I also obtained some intelligence, Zhongzhangyu said. Since the results of the interrogation were withheld by the then fake speaker, they didn't know about the soul summoning technique, and naturally didn't know that another piece of news had been revealed at that time, the cyborg experiment. What intelligence? Liu Fiang asked. According to an explanation from a holy envoy at the time, the higher-ups of the red-clothed sect are secretly conducting cyborg experiments, Zhongzhangyu said. What? Why didn't you say such important information earlier? He Jinghu shouted. Why are you yelling? I already submitted the results of the last interrogation to the parliament as soon as possible. It's your own fault for not reading it. Why are you blaming me? Zhongzhangyu glanced at him. He Jinghu had secretly investigated this matter after the last meeting, but the clues stopped at the speaker. The interrogation records were also deleted from the archives. He Jinghu had specifically looked for Bailey Ji because of this matter, but since the matter had already passed, Bailey Ji couldn't tell him about the fake speaker again. So he called off the investigation. As for the lost interrogation records, they could no longer be retrieved. Counselor Zhuang, please continue, Bailey Ji said. However, according to my deduction, the level of the holy envoy in the red-clothed sect should also belong to the bottom level, and they know very little. According to the holy envoy, he also learned about the cyborg experiment unintentionally from the Holy Sun. Therefore, the specific experimental location and experimental content were not understood, Zhongzhangyu said. Then you mean that these people in front of us may be cyborgs? Liu Fiang asked. I guess it's possible, Zhongzhangyu replied. Then if this guess is true, is it possible that the red-clothed sect is manipulating the invasion of our China behind the scenes? Liu Fiang continued to hypothesize. There is indeed such a possibility. Zhongzhangyu nodded. Now that the government of Wulin cannot be contacted, is it possible that the entire Wulin has been controlled by the red-clothed sect? Zhang Jun of the Foreign Affairs Department asked. I'm afraid so. Zhongzhangyu nodded. Everyone fell silent, and everyone's expressions became serious when formulating the combat plan. They did not anticipate the existence of cyborgs. Wulin's military strength is not strong, so everyone unanimously believed that as long as they could deal with those rat rabbits, the entire Wulin would not have the strength to compete with China. However, The appearance of cyborgs has added considerable variables to this defensive counterattack. Immediately contact Counselor Shen Tu and inform him of this situation, Bailey Ji said. The secretary obeyed and hurried out. Speaker, I'm afraid our conventional weapons can't handle the current situation. Or, Liu Fiang said halfway. He wanted to suggest that Bailey Ji send the Dark Knight team over, but suddenly realized that the Dark Knight team had been assigned to He Jinghu of the security department, so he didn't continue. Speaker, why not immediately let the Dark Knight team go to support? He Jinghu knew what Liu Fiang wanted to say, so he took the initiative to speak. Chapter 303, Cyborg Captured. Councilman Hui, Councilman Suo, listen to the order, Bailey Ji decisively commanded. Yes, the two stood up. I now order you two to immediately lead the Dark Knight squad to provide support. 2 scenarios. First, if Councilman Shen Tu encounters an accident, Councilman Suo will temporarily serve as commander-in-chief, and the troops will continue to advance, making sure to capture the capital city of Ulan, Bado, and rescue the people. Second, if Councilman Shen Tu is safe and sound, that would be the best. Councilman He will stay behind to command the Dark Knight squad to cooperate with Councilman Shen Tu's actions, and Councilman Suo can return. Bailey Ji arranged. Yes, the two accepted the order and left. Ulan, Mandalay. It was noon, and the scorching sun shone directly on the ground, churning up waves of heat. A dozen modified humans looked at the hundreds of soldiers in combat uniforms holding guns across from them. Without a trace of fear on their faces, they advanced step by step. The people opposite, listen up. Stop advancing immediately and surrender, an officer shouted through a loudspeaker. The dozen modified humans, whether they didn't understand or couldn't hear, continued to walk forward. Fire, the officer ordered. Bang, bang, bang. Hundreds of soldiers fired at the same time, bullets spraying out like raindrops. The dozen modified humans also moved, leaping up at least 7 or 8 meters high. The ground left deep footprints due to the strong impact. The stones under their feet shattered because they couldn't withstand the force. The soldiers reacted quickly, and when they saw these people jump up, they quickly swept their guns towards the sky. Unfortunately, these people were too fast, and the bullets didn't hit them with this jump. The dozen people had already entered the soldiers' defense line. It was too late to fire again, and now they could only engage in hand-to-hand combat without protective suits. These ordinary soldiers would not be a match for these modified humans at all. But now, they could at least use their numerical advantage to fight. A modified human with long braids punched a soldier, sending him flying. The soldier crashed into the tank behind him and fell to the ground. However, he quickly and laboriously stood up and charged again. The long-braided modified human was a little surprised looking at the other soldiers who had been hit. They were all the same. They seemed to have strong resistance to blows. If it were normal, an ordinary person would have died directly from such a blow, but now, they couldn't care so much. If one punch didn't kill them, they'd use two. The battle couldn't stop. The battle was fierce, with soldiers constantly rushing forward and constantly being sent flying, and new soldiers constantly arriving from all directions and joining the battle. As the number of people increased, the dozen modified humans gradually became overwhelmed. The soldiers charged forward desperately, and finally, a modified human was successfully pinned down. 1, 2, with the coordinated efforts of the soldiers, they used the human wave tactic to capture these modified humans alive. After the crisis was resolved, these people's hands and feet were tied tightly, and they were thrown on the ground like mummies. The soldiers pointed their guns at them, surrounding them in 3 layers. Commander, they are too dangerous. You can't go over there. Shen Tu. Zheng Hao was about to get up when he was stopped by the officers next to him. All right, bring a translator over and interrogate them to see if we can get some information. Especially where our Chinese people were taken. We must find out. If necessary, we can use unconventional means. Those who don't cooperate can be shot directly. Shen Tu's Zheng Hao considered it and thought it was too risky for him to go over, so he arranged. Yes, the officer accepted the order and left. At the same time, on the screen, the battle between the simulated spider robots and the rat rabbits in the city was also coming to an end. Now almost all the robots had gathered, and the rat rabbit group had basically been slaughtered, with a thick layer of corpses on the ground afterwards. The robots dispersed and continued to search the entire city. The officer walked into the encirclement, looked at a dozen people struggling on the ground, and ordered. Have a few people go over and cut off all their Achilles tendons. Yes, several soldiers were responsible for pressing down on one of the modified humans, while the other 2 took out daggers, 1 for each leg, and stabbed hard, then picked, and gurgling blood flowed out, staining the ground red. Then the next person. In a short while, Everyone's Achilles tendons were severed. They may have been writhing on the ground because of the pain. The soldiers watched from the side, and no one sympathized. Before long, they gradually calmed down. Pull one over here, the officer ordered. 2 soldiers stepped forward, dragged one over at random, and threw him at the officer's feet. The officer took out his pistol, opened the safety, and cocked it. Tell me, where are the people you captured from China a few days ago being held? After the officer finished speaking, he glanced at the translator next to him. The translator repeated the question in Ulan. The modified human lying on the ground stared straight at the officer with bloodshot eyes, but refused to speak. Bang! Without saying a word, the officer shot him directly in the thigh. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, One Life, One Problem. Modified humans possess superior explosive power, strength, and speed, far surpassing normal individuals. However, they are certainly not bulletproof. A single shot can still penetrate their flesh. Woo woo woo! The modified human roared after being shot, gasping for breath. I'll ask you one more time. Where are the people you captured from China a few days ago being held? The officer asked again. The translator repeated the question. The modified human's eyes were filled with anger, staring intently at him, but still not uttering a word. Bang! Another shot. The modified human's other thigh was hit. He seemed to be in even more pain, his breathing becoming more rapid, and more beads of sweat appearing on his face and forehead, streaming down his cheeks. It seems you're quite stubborn. If you don't speak, the next shot will be to your head. This is your last chance, the officer said. The translator quickly translated again. The modified human still showed no intention of speaking. Bang! A shot to the head. The modified human died instantly, blood splattering everywhere. Drag him away, and bring another one over. The officer ordered. The soldiers dragged the dead modified human aside and pulled another one over. This one was a woman. However, her extremely exaggerated muscular physique made all the men present feel inferior. I can understand that you are all unfortunate people who were captured and subjected to human experiments. Actually, you don't need to keep secrets for those heinous individuals. You should cooperate with us to send those devils to the 18th level of hell, don't you think? The officer said, squatting down and looking at the modified human. The translator continued to translate. The woman looked at him without speaking. Although I haven't experienced it myself, I can imagine how much pain you've endured to become like this. They treated you like this. Why are you still so loyal to them? The woman still didn't answer. How about this? I usually don't hit women. Now, I'll give you the power of life and death over them, and you can decide their fate. As long as you cooperate, they can live. If they don't cooperate, they will die. The choice is yours, the officer said, pointing to the modified humans lying on the ground not far away. The translator translated the words again. He wasn't sure if these people were mute or if they had normal thinking abilities. He also wasn't sure if this kind of divisive tactic would work. He was just gambling now. If the method didn't work after one try, he would have to kill them all. Drag another person over here, the officer ordered. So the soldiers dragged another person over. The officer cocked the gun and pointed it at the person's forehead. One life for one question. If you answer, he lives. If you don't answer, he dies. Do you understand? The officer said. The translator translated simultaneously. Tell me, where are the captured Chinese people being held? The officer asked. The woman still didn't answer. 3, 2, 1, bang! The officer fired directly after finishing the countdown. The first person had to be killed. Not killing her wouldn't eliminate the fluke mentality that might exist in her heart. Drag her away, and bring another one over. The officer ordered. The soldiers dragged another person over. Still the same question. Tell me, where are the captured Chinese people being held? 3, 2, in Bardo, the woman said. Moreover, this woman could actually speak Chinese. The officer secretly breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing the woman speak. It was not easy to catch a group of people. It would be too much of a loss if he couldn't get information from them. Are you Chinese? The officer asked. Yes, the woman replied after a moment of silence. Since you are Chinese, why are you helping the Yuan nation fight against your own country's army? The officer asked. The woman sneered. Doesn't the Chinese army never kill prisoners? What are you doing now? You're right, the Chinese army doesn't kill prisoners. But the prerequisite is that you have to be aware of being a prisoner. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese citizens are still in the Yuan nation, with their lives hanging in the balance. In order to rescue those compatriots who are suffering, using some extraordinary means is not excessive, the officer said. Ha ha ha. It's really ironic for you to say that. The woman's eyes were filled with hatred. What do you mean by that? The officer asked. If you think these people are still Chinese compatriots, why didn't you come to rescue them when the settlement was besieged by zombies? The woman scolded. The officer was momentarily at a loss for words, speechless, right? Although I hate them for turning me into something that's neither human nor ghost. But they said one thing that's still very true. The lives of ordinary people like us are just like weeds. No one cares whether we live or die, we can only rely on ourselves, the woman said. We're getting off topic. Let's get back to my question, the officer said, not wanting to continue the topic. There were some things that he himself didn't understand, but as a soldier, he could only execute orders. Ask away, the woman replied indifferently. Chapter 305, Come and Deliver Information. Did you just say that the captured US citizens are being held in Bardo City? The officer asked. Yes, the woman replied. What part of Bardo City? The officer asked. Inside a hospital south of the National Stadium, the woman replied. The officer frowned and continued to ask, why do you know so much about this? He suddenly had a feeling that the information was obtained a little too easily. Because I also participated in the last attack on Bay Ansuk, the woman explained. The officer nodded. It sounded logical enough. What's the situation in Ulan country now? The officer asked from a different angle. What aspect are you referring to? The woman asked. Is Ulan country controlled by certain forces? The officer asked. I'm not too sure about that. The people I come into contact with are basically all US citizens, with a small number of foreigners. Also, I don't understand the Ulan language, so I'm not very clear about this, the woman said. Did they teach you to say this? The officer asked. You? What do you mean? The woman's expression was a little unnatural. If I'm not mistaken, this attack of yours is to deliver information, right? The officer asked. No, it's not. The woman became a little nervous. The officer understood from the woman's expression that he had guessed correctly. Look up and see, look at the people around you, they are all your compatriots. Can you bear to lead them into the trap set by that group of demons with your own hands? The officer said, pointing to the surrounding soldiers. Head, compatriots? A group of compatriots with guns. The woman knew she had been exposed, so she stopped pretending and sneered. It seems you have a lot of resentment. The officer stood up and said, that's right. I hate it. I hate all of you. My family, my children are all dead. From that moment on, I vowed to make you all be buried with them. The woman roared through clenched teeth. You're a complete lunatic. The officer glared at her and rebuked. So what? The woman didn't care. All right, I sympathize with your experience and understand your feelings. Then tell me, who are those devils who are experimenting on you? Where are they? I think you hate more than just us, right? Eliminating them along the way is something you'd like to see, I think. The officer changed his approach again, even though the information she provided had the suspicion of luring the army into a pre-prepared trap. Knowing where the trap is better than being completely in the dark. You can't say. Another modified human who had just been dragged over opened his mouth to stop her. Bang! The officer fired a shot. A headshot. The man died instantly. All right, you can speak now, the officer said. Didn't you say one question for one life? I answered your question, but you still killed him, the woman said calmly. Your answer wasn't very sincere. I think you understand what I mean, the officer said. Only a small number of people are held in the hospital south of the National Stadium. I don't know where the others are. Our mission is to provide false information and trick you into going there, the woman said, taking a breath. Who ordered you to do this? What I mean is, who are they? The officer asked. I'm not too sure. It should be a religious sect. They call themselves the Holy Church, the woman replied. The Holy Church. The Red Robe sect. The officer frowned and thought, are they wearing red cloaks? The officer asked. Cloaks? No, the woman denied. No. The officer was a little confused. In whole country, he had not heard of the existence of other sects besides the Red Robe sect and the Red Lotus sect, and according to the information held by the military and the council, the followers of these two sects all wore red cloaks. The Red Lotus sect is actually a smokescreen thrown out by Dongfang Chen as for the Red Robe sect. Its essence is just a peripheral force formed by the holy son of a mysterious religion when he is active outside. Only Dongfang Chen had explored the tip of the iceberg of this situation, while others, including the council, were completely unaware. Indeed not, the woman replied again, not even wearing masks. The officer continued to confirm, no. They just look like ordinary people, the woman replied. Where are they? The officer asked. They are not in Ulan country, the woman replied. Not here? Then where are they? The officer was now at a loss. In the territory of Iris, 100 kilometers from the northern border of Ulan country, the small town on the southern shore of Lake Baikal, Baikalsk. The woman closed her eyes, hesitated again and again, and answered, in Iris country. The officer exclaimed in surprise. Yes, the woman nodded. The officer didn't know what to say. The problem had become more complicated. Chapter 306 Yan Zhangping, S analysis. First, lock them up and keep them under strict guard, the officer commanded. Yes, the soldier replied. Oh, right, lock them up separately and forbid them from communicating. Also, you must ensure they are within sight at all times, the officer added. Yes, the soldiers responded. The officer arranged everything and hurried back to the command center. Commander, the situation is serious, the officer said anxiously. Yes, I heard. Go and rest for a bit. I'm going to call a meeting, Shen Tuzhanghao said. Yes, the officer obeyed and left. You all go out first too, Shen Tuzhanghao said to the operators in front of the screens. Yes, the soldiers saluted and left after everyone had left. Shen Tuzhanghao connected with the council and began a remote meeting. Counselor Shen 2, have Counselor He and Counselor Suo arrived yet? Bailiji asked. Not yet, Shen Tuzhanghao replied. Good, let's start a meeting then. Everyone understands the situation. Who wants to speak first? Bailiji asked. I'll start. Liu Fiang from the military and political department cleared his throat and said, I don't think the female cyborg's confession is credible. Just as the officer said, the confession came too easily. Those people are clearly suicide soldiers. I'm afraid the attack was a feint, and the real purpose was to provide false information, Liu Fiang said. Following this logic, I'm afraid the enemy has already prepared a trap in Bado City, waiting for us to walk into it. Under these circumstances, continuing to advance north is very risky, Liu Fiang continued. So, you mean withdraw the troops? Zhongzhangyu asked. You. I didn't say that. Liu Fiang's expression turned a little ugly as he denied it. Isn't that what you meant? What's wrong with risk? Can there be no risk in war? I think this battle must be fought. This tone cannot change. We haven't even seen the enemy yet, and you're already timidly preparing to retreat. This is not the style of Hu, not the style of the Hu army, Zhongzhangyu said decisively. Zhongzhangyu, let's discuss, don't make insinuations. Who is being timid? You are also a military region commander. Do you not think when you fight? To rashly attack without being fully prepared is the act of a reckless man, Liu Fiang retorted. I don't think. You're just in charge of logistics. What do you know about fighting? Zhongzhangyu retorted. Alright, you two, if you keep arguing, get out. Bailiji stopped them. The two stopped talking. Counselor Yan, what do you think? Bailiji looked at Yan Zhangping. Counselor Liu and Counselor Zhong both have their points. Based on the current situation, it's certain that the enemy is definitely prepared in Bado City. Moreover, from the interrogation just now, we learned that the area they want us to go to is near the National Stadium in the southern part of Bado City. From a geographical perspective, this is also the only way for us to enter the city. So, I guess this area will be their key deployment area, Yan Zhangping said. Of course, I also share the same view that this battle must be fought. The result of returning without any achievements will make those with ulterior motives even more rampant, and our country's borders will be plagued with constant troubles. However, before taking further action, I think there are several issues that need to be clarified. The first question is, who exactly is our enemy? Is it the Red Robe sect? The Red Lotus sect? Or the Yuan country? What exactly is the holy sect that the suicide soldier mentioned? The second question is, what kind of deployment have they made in Bado City? Now we are in the open, and the enemy is in the dark. Since the enemy can send suicide soldiers to attack our command center, it means that they have basically grasped our troop deployment. Therefore, it can be basically concluded that in the area south of Bado City, there must be attack methods or secret weapons that can restrain our tank groups. The third question is, are the Chinese citizens who were captured really imprisoned in Bado City? Is it possible that this is just a smokescreen? And if they are not in Bado City, where would they be? The fourth question is, if, as the suicide soldier said, the enemy is hiding in Bigasik in the Oris territory, how should this battle be fought? Oris is not comparable to Ulan, their military strength is very strong, and they have always maintained good diplomatic relations with us. Directly sending troops to attack Bigasik is definitely not feasible. But if we don't fight, we will most likely not be able to achieve very obvious results, which is a bit difficult. These are some of the issues I have thought of so far. I believe that we must first clarify these issues before we can determine the next military action, Jens Hangping said. Bailigi nodded and then looked at the screen. Councillor Shen too. What do you think? Bailigi asked. I think Councillor Yen's analysis is very comprehensive, and these issues are also what I am considering, Shen Tuzhanghao said as always, concisely. Chapter 307 A Time Bomb. Then let's talk about these issues next, Bailigi said. By the way, I have something to add regarding the first question. Jens Hangping said he suddenly remembered that Dongfang Chen had secretly called him to the Binjian base to listen to a recording. The recording was about the conversation between the Mosin Arc base and number 1. Oh? Councilman Yan, please speak, Bailigi said. As far as I know, not all members of the Red Cloak Society wear red cloaks, Jens Hangping said. Dongfang Chen had told him this. When discussing whether number 1 was the speaker, he had mentioned that only holy envoys and divine envoys of the Red Cloak Society wore red cloaks, while others did not. However, this issue also involved the speaker and could not be discussed in detail. Therefore, Jens Hangping looked at Bailigi and spoke vaguely. Now that you mention it, I also remembered something. During the interrogation of the holy envoys, one of them mentioned that the reason they wore cloaks and masks was because they had taken a pill. That pill could enhance combat power but would cause significant changes in their appearance. After they were executed, I personally saw that their faces were covered with blue blood vessels and were extremely hideous, Zhongzhangyu said. Ugh, Liu Fiang became furious when he heard Zhongzhangyu mention those holy envoys. He had executed such crucial figures, and such important information was lost. How could he not be angry? Then, does that mean the sacred society mentioned by the female assassin is undoubtedly the Red Cloak Society? Chen Guangxun, the Minister of Finance, asked. We can only say that it's possible. We don't know much about the Red Lotus Society, and we can't contact the official government of Ulan, so these two possibilities can't be ruled out, Jens Hangping said. I have a suggestion. We probably won't be able to come to a conclusion by discussing it here. Now that the Dark Knight squad is about to arrive at the front line, I think it's better to send them to secretly infiltrate Bardo City to investigate, find out the location where our citizens are being held, and the enemy's troop deployment. As for which force is manipulating behind the scenes, we can discuss it after we have further information. In addition, I have two plans for the Bigask issue. One is to contact the official LS government and share the information with them. If they are willing to cooperate with our actions, that would be the best. If they are not willing, then we can take the second plan, which is to send the Dark Knight squad to secretly infiltrate and carry out a decapitation strike. Liu Fiang of the Military Affairs Department said. Bailigi nodded and asked the other council members, what do you all think? I think there are no major problems in general. However, I have some different opinions on handling the Bigask issue, Jens Hangping said. Oh? Councilman Yan, please speak, Bailigi said. If we contact the official LS government in advance, then our military intentions will inevitably be exposed. If they do not agree to cooperate with our actions, and we then send the Dark Knight squad to secretly infiltrate, once discovered, or if there is too much commotion, it will lead to disputes between the two countries, Jens Hangping explained. Jens Hangping was right. Once the official LS government was contacted, this matter would be out in the open. If anything happened to Bigask later, China would have an inescapable responsibility. Then, is there a possibility that the enemy set the hideout in Bigask in order to create conflict between our country and LS? Zhang Jun of the Foreign Affairs Department was suddenly awakened. Hearing Zhang Jun's words, several council members gasped. That's very possible. If that's the case, once we inform the official LS government, if something happens to Bigask, whether we did it or not, we'll be held responsible, Zhongzhangyu said. Not only that, but I suspect Bigask is a time bomb. As long as we contact LS, this bomb will inevitably explode, and the commotion will definitely be significant, Liu Fiang said. Several council members gasped again. What a damaging trick, the council members murmured. In that case, let's put the Bigask matter aside for now and not take any action. Let the Dark Knight squad secretly infiltrate Bardo City for reconnaissance first, and we'll discuss other matters later. At the same time, Councilman Shen will temporarily be stationed in Mandalay and make a decision after we have further information, Bailigi decided. Yes, Yes, all the council members had no objections around 2 p.m. Suo Tunhua and He Jing, who led the members of the Dark Knight squad to arrive at the Mandalay garrison. See, I told you that this Northwest butcher is very tough and will definitely be safe and sound. I was right, wasn't I? Suo Tunhua said to He Jing, who after seeing Shentu's Hanghao, the two of them had been on the plane and did not participate in the remote meeting just now, so they were not aware of the latest mission arrangements. He Jing, who curled his lips and ignored him. Lao Suo, the plan has been adjusted. I'll relay the latest decision of the council to you first, Shentu's Hanghao said half an hour later. These people are really cunning, Suo Tunhua said after listening to Shentu's Hanghao's description. Councilman He, then I'll leave the Dark Knight squad's operation to you, Shentu's Hanghao said to He Jing, who, don't worry, I'll go arrange it now. He Jing, who nodded in agreement, then turned and left. Chapter 308. Let them toss first. With Shentu Hanghao safe and sound, Suo Tunhua had no reason to stay. So, after a brief chat, the two boarded a plane and returned to Kyoto under He Jinghu's arrangement. The Dark Knight squad set off swiftly to avoid attracting attention. They first had to take a helicopter to the Biduhan Mountain south of Bado City, then hike north, sneaking into Bado City under the cover of darkness. Around 6 p.m., the Dark Knight squad landed in a clearing in the heart of the Biduhan Mountains. At this point, they were still about 10 kilometers away from the city. Unlike other places, the shady side of the Biduhan Mountains in summer is covered with dense coniferous plants. Their plan was to use these plants as cover, advancing northwest through the valley, and then enter the city after dark. Their first task was to scout the area around the National Stadium, to find out the enemy's troop deployment and whether any Huaxia citizens were being held in the hospital. The Dark Knight squad consisted of 19 people, including Shen Wengang and his sister Lu'er as a sister-doting brother. Shen Wengang would absolutely not allow Lu'er to act alone and had to keep her by his side at all times. So, the 19 people could only be used as 18. The 18 people were divided into 6 groups, with 3 people in each group. Breaking into smaller units could reduce the target size and minimize the risk of being discovered. At the same time, multiple groups working separately could greatly increase the efficiency of the investigation. This is the main road into the city. This is the Ulahan district, this is the National Stadium, and this is the hospital. Group 1, you are responsible for scouting the northern area of the hospital. Be careful, there are many buildings here, so your actions must be concealed. Group 2, you are responsible for scouting this area to the east. According to the map, this area is deserted, so pay attention to whether there are any tire tracks or tread marks on the ground. After the investigation, if you don't find anything, immediately move closer to Group 1 and cooperate with Group 1's actions. Group 3, Shen Wengang was assigning tasks to the others in a patch of grass in the valley. Everyone was huddled there, listening attentively with the tasks assigned. Everyone concealed themselves and quietly waited for nightfall. Brother, I thought of a problem. What if there are zombies in the city at night? Those guys have very sensitive noses, and our scent will easily attract them, Lu'er said. Don't worry, that problem won't happen, Shen Wengang said softly. Why? Lu'er asked. You'll find out later, Shen Wengang said with a smile, keeping her in suspense. Oh, seeing that Shen Wengang didn't explain, Lu'er didn't ask any further. There were other people nearby, and they were used to not discussing many things in public. Senior brother Ling Gan, they have arrived. A girl with long, wavy hair in her early 20s walked into the room and said, Good. I finally waited for this day, Ling Gan said happily after hearing Ling Su's report. Then what do we do next? Ling Su asked. Have all the zombies in the Ulahan district been transferred away? Ling Gan asked. They were transferred away yesterday, Ling Su replied. That's good. Let them make a fuss first. Arrange for some small fries to create some trouble for them, but be careful not to go too far, Ling Gan said. Okay. Senior brother Ling Gan, those things. Are we really not going to use them anymore? Ling Su asked hesitantly. Those things are just scrap metal, they're not of much use to us anyway. Besides, if you're not willing to part with a bait, how can you catch the big fish? Don't you think so? Ling Gan turned around, looked at Ling Su, smoothed her hair with his hand, and said with a smile, Ling Su's cheeks were flushed, and she nodded shyly with her head lowered. Okay, go and arrange it. Keep a close eye on this matter yourself, and don't scare the fish away, Ling Tian whispered into Ling Su's ear. Ling Su's whole body went limp from this action. She nodded hurriedly and ran out of the office like a rabbit. After Ling Su left, Ling Tian's smile faded, and his eyes became fierce. Night fell. The three members of Group 1 of the Dark Knight Squad had quietly arrived at their assigned area. This place was a relatively remote part of Bato City, with few buildings, and now it was even more desolate. To prevent exposure, they couldn't walk on the main road and could only crouch and move forward along the sandy and rocky ground on the outer edge of the road. Suddenly, they heard movement on the road ahead, so they immediately stopped and slowly squatted down. It was the sound of footsteps, and more than one person, judging from the sound. They should be walking towards them. The three looked at each other and nodded, meaning they were confirming each other and preparing to strike at any time. At this time, either don't strike, or make sure to kill with one blow, and absolutely don't make any noise. Once there was noise, the entire reconnaissance mission would be considered a failure. Just then, they also heard a sound behind them, also walking towards them. The nerves of the three people immediately tense up. One group would be easy to deal with, but two groups would be very risky. Moreover, He Jing, who had told them before they came that there might be an unknown number of modified humans here. In this situation, it would be very unwise to act without absolute certainty. Chapter 309. Three cyborgs killed. One of the team members waved his hand at the other two, signaling them to leave. They made a quick decision and moved away from the road. In this situation, it was best to hide. This area happened to have no buildings, only a few knee-high coniferous shrubs. The three of them hid behind these plants, successfully concealing their tracks. The two groups on the road seemed to not notice the movements beside the road, and continued forward. After meeting each other after the two groups had gone far away, they continued to move forward. Group 6 was investigating the most complex area, the northwest. This was a densely populated slum area with at least 50 or 60 unpaved dirt roads. The houses were basically ordinary one-story huts, and a large part of them were yurts. The street layout was quite orderly, with each household divided into independent courtyards by fences, and these houses and yurts were built in the fenced courtyards. Although they didn't have to search these houses, it would still take several hours to survey the entire area. As they were investigating a certain street, a sudden change occurred. Three modified humans blocked their way, meeting on a narrow road. There was no need to think at this point. They had to fight. The three of them attacked together, each dealing with one. One of the team members instantly moved in front of a modified human and threw a punch. It had to be said that the physical strength of a modified human was much stronger than that of an ordinary person. The modified human didn't have such a fast reaction speed, and flew backwards from the impact, but his feet dragged along the ground during the flight, and he quickly stabilized himself. Then he dusted himself off, seemingly unharmed. Immediately afterwards, he quickly charged forward, rushing towards this team member. This team member showed no timidity and also charged towards the opponent. The two sides punched at the same time as they approached, and the small fist collided with the modified human's big fist, making a slight collision sound. The team member was pushed back a step by the impact, but was not seriously injured. But the modified human was not so lucky. He took several steps back in succession, and his right arm was directly fractured due to the excessive impact force. It seemed that being big didn't necessarily mean being resistant to beatings. The power level of modified humans was still much inferior to that of mutants. This collision caused the modified human to be stunned for a few seconds. When he came back to his senses and prepared to launch another attack with his left hand, he realized that the person in front of him had disappeared. Taking advantage of his stunned state, the team member had quickly moved behind him. A sharp dagger had quietly extended towards his neck, and when he realized the danger and prepared to dodge, it was too late. The team member struck with his knife, and the modified human's throat was slit directly. The situation of the other two members was also similar, and all three modified humans were killed in less than a minute. After dragging the corpses to a hidden corner, the three continued to investigate forward. The four members of Shen Wengang's group were responsible for investigating the most important place, the hospital on the south side of the Yunnan country's national stadium. The female suicide agent confessed that a part of the Chinese citizens were being held here. There were sentry posts at the entrance of the hospital, with at least 3 or 4 people guarding them. Shen Wengang's group of 4 went around to the wall on the south side of the hospital, used their feet to gain leverage, and directly climbed over the wall. This hospital was very small, with only one main building and no other buildings. The position where they climbed over the wall was just behind the main building. The main building had 4 floors, all of which were dark, except for a room on the 4th floor that had lights on. Climbing stairs was nothing to them. After using the windowsills several times to gain leverage, the 4 successfully reached the top of the building. "You guys wait for me outside, I'll go in and take a look," Shen Wengang ordered. "Brother, I'll go too." Luer disagreed with Shen Wengang. "Acting alone, you wait outside and observe the surrounding situation. If there is danger inside, I'll need you to pull me out, Shen Wengang said with a smile. Okay, Luer agreed. Shen Wengang nodded, grabbed the eaves with one hand, and jumped down, landing right outside the window with the light on. Looking in through the window, it was an office. A doctor in a white coat was frantically rummaging through something. He needed to wait for an opportunity. If he went in directly at this time, the other party's shouting might attract other people. 5 minutes later, the person inside walked out of the room. Shen Wengang seized this opportunity, opened the window, and jumped in. The office was a mess, with scattered documents all over the desk and the floor, as if it had just been ransacked. There were footsteps in the corridor, and Shen Wengang didn't have time to do anything, so he quickly stood behind the door. The door opened, and the person who came in was the same person who had just gone out. He seemed to have left something behind, touched his pocket and didn't have it, looked on the table and didn't have it either, so he started rummaging around again. Shen Wengang quietly came behind him and put the knife on his neck. The man was just about to shout when Shen Wengang covered his mouth. Don't shout. If you shout, your head will be moved. Understand? Shen Wengang said in a low voice. The doctor looked a little scared and nodded tremblingly. Chapter 310 looks happy. Since the doctor nodded, it meant he understood the whole language. It would be much easier if he could understand. Shen Wengang slowly released his left hand, but the knife was still held against his neck. Who a country person? Shen Wengang asked. Yes, the doctor nodded. Why are you here? Shen Wengang asked. I was tricked into coming here by them, the man said. When? Shen Wengang asked. Last year, the man replied. Last year? Tell the truth, or don't blame me for being impolite. Shen Wengang didn't believe him. Really it was last year. They were recruiting workers at the resettlement center at the time, so I went. I never thought I would be tricked into coming here, and I've never been back since. The man seemed a little scared. This was a common trick used by the redcoats, which meant that the people behind this were more likely to be from the redcoats. Who are you referring to when you say them? Shen Wengang asked. I don't know. After I came here, I stayed in this building every day and hardly ever saw them again, the man said. What do you do here? Shen Wengang asked. I just help people check their bodies and treat headaches and minor ailments, the man said. Shen Wengang frowned, feeling like there was something wrong with this answer, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Do you know that they captured many people from whole country a few days ago? Shen Wengang asked. I know. The man's eyes lit up, and he nodded quickly. Oh? Then tell me, where are they being held? Shen Wengang asked. They're being held downstairs, the man replied. Downstairs? Shen Wengang was suspicious. This building wasn't very big and couldn't hold many people. That's right. There's a very large basement under this building that can accommodate many people, the man said. How many people are there? Shen Wengang asked. More than 20,000 people. My job is to ensure their health and prevent the spread of infectious diseases, the man said. Take me to see, Shen Wengang said. Okay, the man readily agreed. You seem very willing. Shen Wengang thought the man was being a little too cooperative and asked, I am willing. Let me tell you, I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. I've always believed that whole country would send people to save us, especially, the man chattered on. Alright, stop talking nonsense, lead the way. I'm warning you, don't play any tricks, or you'll be the first to die, Shen Wengang warned. I'm sorry, I got a little excited. I'll take you there right away. But you can't wear this, the man said. Then what should I wear? Shen Wengang asked. Put the knife down, and I'll find you some clothes. The man tried to move the knife away. Shen Wengang didn't trust him easily, but in order to allow him to move, he moved the knife away from his neck and pressed it against his lower back. Go find them, Shen Wengang said. Okay. The man knew the tip of the knife was pointing at his lower back, so he tried his best to cooperate. The man came to a cabinet, opened the door, and took out a bag from inside. He placed the bag on the ground and opened it. Inside were a pile of tattered clothes, most of which still had blood stains on them. Turn around. Raise your hands, Shen Wengang said. Okay. The man stood with his back to Shen Wengang, raising both hands high. Don't turn around, or don't blame me for being ruthless, Shen Wengang reminded him. Okay. The man nodded in response while keeping an eye on the man. Shen Wengang rummaged through the bag for clothes to change into. He was currently using a second-generation combat suit, which could be switched with one piece of clothing soon. Shen Wengang changed his clothes. Alright, let's go, Shen Wengang said. The man cautiously turned around, saw that Shen Wengang had changed his clothes, and said, the clothes are fine, but your face isn't. It's too clean. The man said. Shen Wengang felt that it made sense. Being too energetic could easily arouse suspicion. So he squatted down, wiped the ground with his left hand, and then wiped it on his face, smearing the dirt on his face. The ground hadn't been swept for who knows how long, and it was really dirty. Shen Wengang wiped his face with a handful, making it completely dirty with everything prepared. The man led Shen Wengang out of the office. The corridor was dark. Without lights, the man turned on a flashlight to illuminate the way forward. Shen Wengang didn't really care. His digital eye pupils had night vision capabilities. Even in the dark corridor, he could clearly see the surrounding environment. They followed the stairs all the way down to the basement. The lights in the basement corridor were on. At the end of the corridor was a door, with two people standing guard at the entrance. "Halt!" One of the guards shouted. "What's wrong?" The man asked. "Who is he?" The guard asked. "This is a patient I took up there." The man said. "Haven't all the patients already come down? How is there still one more?" The guard was a little suspicious. "Didn't I tell you? There's still one person who hasn't come down. How could you forget so quickly?" The man retorted. "Is that so?" The guard scratched his head, unable to recall after thinking for a long time. "Do you remember?" The guard asked another person. "It seems like there was such a thing." The other person replied. "See, I'm right," the man said. "Then you guys can go in." The guard couldn't really remember, but since someone testified, he didn't dwell on it. So the man smoothly led Shen Wengang into the basement. As soon as the door opened, a heat wave mixed with a pungent odor of various smells hit Shen Wengang's face, and he frowned looking around. The basement, which looked like a large underground parking lot, was densely packed with people. Some were standing, some were sitting, some were lying down. All of them were sallow-faced, emaciated, and listless. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311, Advancing Towards Bardo. Among these people were both men and women, all appearing to be young. Shen Wengang secretly held the man hostage, circling around the basement. Few people paid attention to them, most not even opening their eyes. "All right, let's go," Shen Wengang said. "Okay," the doctor nodded, whispering softly. "Why are you bringing him out again so soon after taking him in?" the guard asked, seeing the doctor bring Shen Wengang out again. "We just discovered he has a bit of a fever and needs to go upstairs for an injection," the man explained. "All right, go ahead," the guard said. Not asking any further questions, Shen Wengang and the doctor successfully returned to the fourth-floor office. Shen Wengang went to the window, preparing to jump out. "Comrade, won't you take me with you?" the doctor asked. "You stay here for now. Someone will come to rescue you soon," Shen Wengang said. "Oh, okay, the man nodded. Shen Wengang jumped out of the office window. "Brother, how was it?" Luer asked anxiously as she greeted Shen Wengang upon his return. "There are approximately over 20,000 people imprisoned inside," Shen Wengang said. "That's great," Luer said excitedly. "All right, let's leave first. It's time to rendezvous," Shen Wengang said. Around 4 a.m., the 6 teams gradually returned to the valley where they had started. "Everyone, report your findings," Shen Wengang said. Team 1 discovered an artillery position here, with approximately 200 large-caliber towed artillery pieces, which is at least the equipment of a division, a member of Team 1 said. "A division?" Shen Wengang was a little surprised. He Jinghu had introduced a general situation before they set off, saying that the Yuan country's government might have already been controlled. Deploying troops here under such circumstances was very abnormal. "That's right," the team member replied affirmatively. "Team 2, Shen Wengang asked. "No discoveries in the eastern area," a member of Team 2 replied. "Team 3, no discoveries." Team 4, "We discovered a minefield on the main road leading to Bado City in the southwest direction. According to our estimates, this minefield is at least 2 kilometers long," a member of Team 4 reported. Shen Wengang nodded. Team 6, Shen Wengang asked. "We didn't find anything either, but we encountered 3 modified humans during the reconnaissance process, and we killed them," a member of Team 6 replied. Shen Wengang nodded and then reported the findings to He Jinghu around 7 a.m. in the conference room. "It seems our deduction yesterday was correct. The enemy's goal is to use the more than 20,000 Chinese citizens imprisoned in the hospital as bait to lure our army into their prepared pocket," Liu Fiang said. "I don't agree. My intuition tells me there's something strange about this," Zhong's Hangayu said. "What's strange about it?" Liu Fiang asked. The Ulan country's government is paralyzed, so the appearance of this division is a bit odd. Zhuang's Hangayu said, what's so strange about that? Although the government is paralyzed, the troops might be in the hands of someone else, Liu Fiang said. The biggest problem now is the minefield on the only road to the south. If we don't clear the mines, our tanks will have difficulty passing through, He Jinghu said. What's the problem with that? Just send bombers to carpet bomb the area, Suo Tunhua said. Councillor Shentu, what do you think? Bailey Ji asked. It's possible, Councillor Shentu said. Alright, let's do that then. Councillor Liu Fiang, you are now authorized with level 3 access to DB-13 launch silo. Order the control center to launch a Dragon Slayer 3 strategic medium-range cruise missile at the location of the Ulan country's artillery position. We must hit it with one strike and completely destroy the enemy's artillery group, Bailey Ji ordered. Yes, Liu Fiang stood up and responded. Councillor Suo Tunhua, you are now ordered to immediately deploy 50 bombers to carpet bomb the minefield south of Bado City, ensuring a safe passage to the city for our army, Bailey Ji ordered. Yes, Suo Tunhua stood up and responded. Councillor He Jinghu, you are now ordered to arrange for the Dark Knight team to stand by at any time. After the battle begins, secretly infiltrate the hospital immediately, eliminate all enemies, and protect the safety of the people. Yes, He Jinghu stood at attention in front of the screen and responded. Councillor Shentu's Henghao, you are now ordered to immediately advance towards the Bado City area and occupy the Ulan district as soon as the minefield is cleared. Yes, Shentu's Henghao received the order. Everyone, please note that occupying the Ulan district is not the goal, nor is occupying the entire Bado City. Our primary goal is to rescue the Chinese citizens and return them to our country, and secondly, to eradicate the evil cult forces entrenched in the Ulan country. Our actions need to be swift and cautious, and we must win this battle decisively and beautifully, Bailey Ji said. Yes, all the councillors stood up together and responded after the meeting. Everyone performed their respective duties and began to get busy. Chapter 312, The Dung Beetle Army. Soon after, 50 bombers took off from a base in the northeast military region at the same time. The silo door of a base in Inner Mongolia province opened, and a missile soared into the sky, spewing fiery flames with a command from Shen Tuzhenghao. The armored divisions began to move, advancing towards the city of Bado to the north. The design goal of the strategic level medium-range cruise missile, Dragon Slayer No. 3, was to precisely strike important military targets of the enemy. Its warhead was a cluster warhead, capable of covering the target area with blanket bombing. Unsurprisingly, the cruise missile was the first to arrive at Bado City. Thanks to the Dark Knight Squad's prior location marking, the missile accurately hit the artillery battery. The missile detonated a dozen meters above the ground, and the energy from the mother bomb's explosion propelled hundreds of submunitions in all directions. The entire artillery position was instantly engulfed in flames, and hundreds of cannons were shattered in an instant. A dozen minutes later, the fighter jet formation arrived in the southern part of Bado City and began to conduct segmented, intensive bombing of the only road leading to the city center. Many landmines were detonated by the high temperatures and impacts of the explosions, triggering secondary explosions. As the explosions rang out, the Dark Knight Squad had already arrived at the hospital. The guards at the entrance were already nervous upon hearing the explosions. When they suddenly saw someone approaching, they began to attack without hesitation. However, these guards were no match for the Dark Knight Squad. Two members of the squad teleported directly in front of the guards and took them out instantly with a single strike each, leaving two people to guard the gate. Shen Wengang and his group continued without stopping, heading straight into the building. It should be noted that, apart from Shen Wengang and Luoer, the other members of the Dark Knight Squad were only equipped with combat suits, but not with digital eye pupils or second-generation bone microphones. Therefore, they did not have night vision capabilities and could only wear night vision goggles to expand their field of vision. Several guards inside the building heard the commotion outside and were running out when they encountered the Dark Knight Squad head-on. Choo-choo-choo, a cold light flashed, and several handleless, sharp flying blades instantly shot out, and the guards fell to the ground before they could react. The one who attacked was Luo. The basement door was kicked open, and the Dark Knight Squad members walked in, led by Shen Wengang. The people inside slowly raised their heads, looking at the sudden scene, and huddled together because the squad members were wearing combat suits. They looked a bit like bandits. So it was normal for everyone to be afraid. Shen Wengang took the lead in removing his combat suit, revealing his true face. The others followed suit. Don't be afraid, everyone. "We are from the Chinese military and we are here to save you," Shen Wengang said. The crowd began to stir, and some of the more sensitive girls finally couldn't help but burst into tears. One led to two. There were more than 20,000 people inside, and the voices of so many people overlapped, making the scene chaotic. "Everyone, don't make noise, listen carefully to what I have to say. The main force of China will arrive within an hour, and everyone will be safe soon. Before that, I hope you can remain restrained and obey management," Shen Wengang shouted loudly. "Okay. We'll listen to you." Several older men took the lead in expressing their stance, with people taking the lead. Order was quickly brought under control. An hour later, the main force successfully arrived, and the entire Wuhan district was completely controlled. After completing a series of deployments, Shen Tuzhenghao came to the basement after confirming that the civilians detained here were from the Bay and Sumu resettlement area. Shen Tuzhenghao contacted Biology. Transporting all these more than 20,000 people back to China was not an easy task. After receiving the confirmation message from Shen Tuzhenghao, Biology ordered the Northeast Military Region to send transport planes to support. At the same time, the transport planes of the Northwest Military Region had also been fully deployed on the battlefield. Unexpected situations can occur at any time. Therefore, the evacuation of the civilians was the top priority, and the speed had to be fast. While the military completely controlled the Wuhan district, an abnormal situation occurred in the main urban area of Bato City. Report. Commander, situation. A soldier ran into the basement and reported urgently. "What happened?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked. "A large number of bugs have appeared in the direction of the main city and are approaching our army," the soldier reported. "What bugs?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked. "They look like dung beetles," the soldier stammered. "Dung beetles?" Shen Tuzhenghao was puzzled. "Why are there so many mutated bugs these days?" "Yes. Many of them are rolling dung balls," the soldier said. "Have the spider robots been deployed?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked. "They've all been deployed, but those bugs are very small and there are a lot of them. I'm afraid tens of thousands of robots won't be able to handle them," the soldier said. "Let's go and take a look." Shen Tuzhenghao hurried out. Shen Wengang led the Dark Knight squad and followed. Now that the basement had been taken over by the military, they no longer needed to stay. Chapter 313. Shen Wengang makes an excuse. Shen Tuzhenghao arrived at the northern defense line and stood on a tank, observing with binoculars. The scene before him made his back tingle. Someone with trypophobia would definitely not be able to handle such a scene, only to see that the ground 1 kilometer away was densely packed with dark green beetles crawling forward. From the easternmost to the westernmost point, as far as the eye could see, it was all these insects. With such a long battle line, tens of thousands of robots really couldn't cope. "Release the flying robots and project the images," Shen Tuzhenghao said. "Yes," the soldier acknowledged and left. Shen Tuzhenghao jumped off the tank and walked into the command center. Shen Wengang silently followed, while the other members of the Dark Knight team stood outside the command vehicle to guard it. Soon, the screen image was transmitted from the lens. It could be seen that the dung beetle army stretched for several kilometers horizontally, basically covering the entire main urban area. They seemed to have received an order, all charging towards them in unison. Shen Tuzhenghao took out his phone and made a call. "All tank divisions, listen to my command. Immediately open fire on the dung beetle swarm in the north. 3 rounds of free fire." Less than 30 seconds after the order was issued, the sound of artillery fire erupted. Thousands of tanks firing at the same time was quite a spectacular scene. The buildings in the main urban area opposite were instantly damaged after experiencing the baptism of artillery fire, with rocks flying everywhere. The dung beetles at the point of the shell explosion were directly blown away, leaving large pits in the ground. However, the area that the shells could cover was limited after all, and the number of dung beetles that could be killed by this bombardment was quite limited. The number of shells was limited and it was impossible to bombard them indefinitely. They had to think of other ways. Report. Commander, the southern defense line reports that huge swarms of dung beetles have also appeared in the southeast and southwest directions. What? Shen Tuzhenghao was shocked. This thing was not comparable to those large mutant cockroaches and mutant ants. If they were large in size, he wouldn't be too worried, as their armor would definitely not be broken by tanks. What was most difficult now was that their size was too small, and the heavy firepower caused very limited damage to them. At the same time, if these little things rushed into the tank group, they might enter the inside of the tank through the gaps, which would be very deadly. Now, even if they wanted to retreat, they couldn't. On the one hand, a large number of dung beetles had also appeared on the road to retreat to the south, blocking the retreat route. On the other hand, There were still more than 20,000 civilians in the basement, and if the army retreated, they would definitely not survive. This was the first time Shen Tuzhenghao had gotten a headache because of fighting a war in terms of head-on confrontation. He was not afraid of anyone. But now, facing this little thing, he was a little helpless. Shen Wengang and the soldier who came in to report stood aside, not speaking, quietly watching Shen Tuzhenghao think. Tiangang, Shen Tuzhenghao called out, "Here." Shen Wengang stepped forward and stood at attention. "The enemy's target is us. I will arrange for 10 tanks to lead the way in front. And you will lead the Dark Knight team to escort the civilians to retreat south. Set off immediately," Shen Tuzhenghao said. "Commander." Shen Wengang was speechless. The people sent by Dongfang Chen had secretly arrived in Bado City yesterday and had already made arrangements here in advance. So staying here would not be dangerous. Shen Wengang already knew this in advance. This was the reason why he was not worried about zombies appearing in the Ulahan district during last night's reconnaissance operation. But right now, he couldn't say this thing because once he said it, this matter would not be justified. Who was the one who took action? What force? He couldn't explain this at all. Even his identity would inevitably be suspected by the military and political department and the security department, and he wouldn't even be able to stay in the Dark Knight team at that time. "What's wrong?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked when he saw Shen Wengang hesitating. He didn't like a soldier disobeying orders. It's just that Shen Wengang was not his subordinate, so he couldn't say anything. "I don't think it's safe to lead the civilians to retreat south at this time." Shen Wengang could only bite the bullet and fabricate a reason. "Why?" Shen Tuzhenghao stared at him and asked. "It is very dangerous for tanks to enter the insect swarm. These insects will enter the cab through the gaps. In this case, the soldiers inside will be very dangerous," Shen Wengang said. "You don't need to consider this. The sacrifice of a few soldiers can be exchanged for the safety of tens of thousands of civilians. This is worth it." Shen Tuzhenghao said he had no choice. If he delayed here any longer, once the insect swarm broke through the defense line, more people would die. It was even possible that the entire army would be wiped out. Also, we are not sure how far the insect swarm covers. If we don't have enough time to break through the blockade during the retreat, we may fall into a dilemma. Moreover, ordinary civilians have not been trained, and if there is chaos, it will really be a dead end. Shen Wengang made up another reason. Although it was made up, it sounded quite reasonable, and this possibility was not impossible. Shen Tuzhenghao could hear that Shen Wengang was just making excuses and didn't want to retreat. But the reason was sufficient, and he couldn't lose his temper. "Then what do you want to do?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked. "I think we can compress the defense line as much as possible and transfer all the armored divisions to the Gobi Desert east of the hospital. Then deploy the simulated spider robots on the periphery to form a protective circle to protect the hospital and armored units. Our Dark Knight team will respond in the middle and eliminate any insects that may rush in. In this case, it is not a problem to persist for a certain period of time. If it doesn't work, when all the insects are concentrated, the depth will inevitably be shortened. At that time, using tanks to open the way will definitely increase the success rate a lot," Shen Wengang said, making up nonsense. Chapter 314 What is your purpose? How could Shen Tuzhenghao be fooled by these ghost stories of his? These dung beetles were clearly premeditated by the enemy. Would they give you such obvious loopholes to exploit? Too idealistic, they will surround and not attack? Must wait until all are present before attacking? What wishful thinking! If it could really be like this, he would dare to drain the gasoline from the tanks and burn them all to death with a single fire. But obviously, this situation will not happen. "Speak, what is your purpose?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked. "Commandant, I don't understand what you mean," Shen Wengang said a little guiltily. "You better give me a satisfactory reason, otherwise I highly suspect your motives," Shen Tuzhenghao said. "Okay, Commander, then I'll be frank. I think your order is unreasonable and risky, so I refuse to execute it." Shen Wengang said this sentence, spoken from the mouth of a soldier, is definitely battlefield insubordination. However, placed in this environment, the danger is reduced instead. This is a little trick to divert attention, fabricating a reason for insubordination to cover up his real purpose. Shen Tuzhenghao walked out of the command center, and Shen Wengang and another soldier followed. "Come," Shen Tuzhenghao shouted. "Here." Several soldiers outside the door responded. "Take him down, find a car, and lock him up," Shen Tuzhenghao ordered. "Commander, what are you doing?" Shen Wengang said, dissatisfied. "If you have any questions, let your superior He Jinghu come to me," Shen Tuzhenghao didn't explain this as his style of doing things. Not much to say to you. The other members of the Dark Knight squad saw Shen Wengang being taken down and gathered around. Commander, what mistake did my brother make that you want to lock him up? Luo asked anxiously. Shen Tuzhenghao frowned. This Dark Knight squad is really unorganized and undisciplined. Asking why again and again on the battlefield? How can there be so many whys? Commander, there's a situation. At this moment, another soldier ran over to report. Speak, Shen Tuzhenghao said coldly. Look there, the soldier said, pointing south. Shen Tuzhenghao looked in the direction the soldier was pointing, and vaguely saw an iron tower similar to a signal tower standing there, very high. This tower just appeared. It wasn't there just now. Shen Tuzhenghao took out his binoculars and looked at it. It really looked like a signal tower. The tip of the tower was also emitting a dazzling light, which was very glaring even in the daytime. Commander, there's a situation. Another soldier ran over to report. Speak, Shen Tuzhenghao said. Commander, the bugs rushing up haven't reached our defense line yet. And then, the soldier stammered. Then what? Shen Tuzhenghao asked with a frown. Then they disappeared. The soldier felt a little unreal. Disappeared. Shen Tuzhenghao felt that the things happening around him were getting stranger and stranger. He was currently near the northern defense line. So he jumped into a tank and looked north with his binoculars. It could be seen that the dung beetles constantly moving forward disappeared inexplicably when approaching a certain line. It was as if there was some kind of taboo there that could instantly clear everything that approached it. Shen Tuzhenghao's expression became more and more solemn. Everything he saw in front of him could not be explained by science at all. He jumped out of the tank and walked to Shen Wengang. Do you know something? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Commander, I don't know anything, Shen Wengang replied. Come, bring Counselor He here. Shen Tuzhenghao didn't waste any more words with him and ordered someone to find He Jinghu soon. Counselor He arrived at this time. Shen Wengang had already been imprisoned, and the other members of the Dark Knight squad were still standing outside the door. Counselor Shen too. What do you need me for? He Jinghu asked as he entered the command center. Counselor He, does the Dark Knight squad have other missions? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. No. Why do you ask? He Jinghu was puzzled. Shen Tuzhenghao roughly recounted Shen Wengang's behavior. Counselor Shen too, I think you're overthinking this. The members of the Dark Knight squad are not from military backgrounds. They were all transferred from various resettlement camps by Liu Fiang of the Military Affairs Department. They used to be ordinary people. I checked this Yan Gang, and he used to be an ordinary citizen with some strength, originally a coach in a boxing gym. He Jinghu explained. Dongfang Chen had already processed the infiltrators' information, so neither He Jinghu nor Liu Fiang found any problems. Electronic files can be tampered with. Have you checked the paper files? Shen Tuzhenghao still felt that there was a problem. It shouldn't be. The original records of the Civil Affairs Department, the data backup of the Military Affairs Department, and the data backup of our Security Department, the three systems are completely independent, and the data retrieved is completely consistent. He Jinghu explained. Maybe the other party's methods are very clever, Shen Tuzhenghao said. Okay. I also thought about retrieving the paper files at that time, but it's impossible to check them, He Jinghu said. Why? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. The file shows that this Yan Gang comes from Binjiang. Now the Huituang Chamber of Commerce has transformed the main urban area of Binjiang beyond recognition, and there is no way to check it. He Jinghu shook his head and explained. Chapter 315. Can you give me a hint? Binjiang? What a coincidence. Shen Tuzhenghao was a bit suspicious. Are you saying that this Yan Gang might have some connection with the Huituang Chamber of Commerce? He Jinghu asked. It's very possible. This Yan Gang is unwilling to evacuate, which is very strange. In addition to what just happened, I suspect he already knew what was going to happen next, Shen Tuzhenghao said, but that doesn't make sense either. Can the Huituang Chamber of Commerce extend its reach here? Do they have the strength? Besides, what are they doing here? He Jinghu asked 3 questions in a row. You are his superior, maybe you should go ask him, Shen Tuzhenghao said. I'll go right now. He Jinghu left the command center without saying a word outside. The dung beetles' attack had no effect. They kept approaching that illusory boundary, constantly disappearing, and the scene continued. Many soldiers and officers took out binoculars and watched quietly. No one knew what was there, no one knew what was happening. They only knew that staying here was relatively safe. Pass down the order. All troops move closer to the center. Shen Tuzhenghao said. The soldier acknowledged the order and left as the number of dung beetles continued to increase. The situation became clearer and clearer. It was underlined. To be precise, it should be a circle, centered on the glowing iron tower. Although he didn't know whose means this was, Shen Tuzhenghao understood that the appearance of this tower was saving them. He turned and returned to the command center, and connected with the council, synchronizing the scene here. Back the council members had been waiting for news from Ulan, and now that the picture was transmitted back, everyone watched carefully. Counselor Shen Tu, what happened? What's the situation? Biology asked. That's what I want to ask too. After we occupied the Ulan district of Bado City, we were surrounded by a huge number of dung beetles. At this time, an iron tower similar to a signal tower appeared, which is the one in the picture. At the same time, these dung beetles disappeared strangely when they crossed the boundary in the picture. Shen Tuzhenghao briefly introduced the situation. In fact, it was clear from the picture transmitted back by the drone that the boundary where the dung beetles disappeared outlined a very standard circle, centered on the iron tower emitting a dazzling white light. I wonder if anyone in the council has seen this thing before, Shen Tuzhenghao asked. No. The councillors shook their heads one after another. Zhuang Zhenyu secretly glanced at Yan Zhangping, trying to find the answer from his expression at this time. Yan Zhangping frowned tightly, and it could be seen that he didn't know either. Councillor Yan, do you think it is possible that this matter was done by the Huatuang Chamber of Commerce? Shen Tuzhenghao asked directly. Huatuang Chamber of Commerce? Impossible, right? What are they doing there? Yan Zhangping said. Shen Tuzhenghao nodded and said nothing more. I don't think we need to be entangled in whether this matter was done by the Huatuang Chamber of Commerce. We should focus our main energy on the battlefield, Zhuang Zhenyu suggested. That's right, I agree. Although I don't know who did it, it is certain that this must come from friendly forces rather than enemy forces, Chen Guangxun of the finance department said. Yes, I also agree. When I saw this picture, I suddenly had a feeling that we might have been fooled, Zhang Jin of the foreign affairs department said. Councillor Zhang, you are right. I speculate that these 20,000 plus people are actually just bait, and the artillery and minefields are just smoke bombs placed by the enemy on the surface to confuse us. Their real trump card is these dung beetles. When we destroy these smoke bombs, we think we have successfully destroyed their pocket formation, but in fact, we have unknowingly entered their arranged encirclement, Zhuang Zhenyu said. Outrageous. Then what should we do now? Are we just going to stay in this circle all the time? Wu Shengrong of the Land Administration Department asked. This is not a big problem yet. The biggest problem is how to fight the next battle? Not to mention our tank groups, they are obviously not good at dealing with these bugs. The simulated spider robots are okay, but there are too few of them. According to the current way of fighting, it is difficult for us to achieve decent results, Zhuang Zhenyu said. If we switch to using simulated spider robots as the main force in the battle, it may have different effects, Shen Tuzhenghao said unexpectedly. I think it's feasible. Since the tank groups are currently unable to be used, it's better to stay in the circle. More than 60,000 robots will continue to advance towards the city as the main force, which will be much faster, Zhuang Zhenyu said with a bright look. Agree. Okay, let's do it that way, Biology said. Councillor Yan, regarding the sudden appearance of the Iron Tower, please contact the Huatuang Chamber of Commerce to verify it. Biology looked at Yan Zhangping and said, okay. Yan Zhangping nodded in agreement. Tiangang, don't be nervous, relax. As long as you honestly explain today's matter, there won't be any problems. He Jinghu walked into the truck where Shen Wengang was being held, sat down, and said, Director He, can you give me a hint? I really don't know why I was locked up, Shen Wengang said. Chapter 316 Niu Xingwang cries. Tiangang, what is your relationship with the Huatuang Commerce Association? He Jinghu asked. Huatuang Commerce Association? Because I know the chairman of the Mercenary Guild, I had a brief meeting with their Commerce Association's chairman. Other than that, there's no relationship, Shen Wengang said. He Jinghu nodded. This was consistent with what he knew because Shen Wengang was initially persuaded by Tian Shan, the chairman of the Mercenary Guild, to join Dark Knight at that time. The Mercenary Guild was just a folk organization within the Merlin settlement, with no reputation, so the military and political department didn't pay attention to it. After you joined Dark Knight, did you maintain contact with the Mercenary Guild? He Jinghu continued to ask. Absolutely not. I have basic confidentiality awareness, Shen Wengang replied very firmly. Then let's talk about today's events. Why did you stop the civilians from evacuating south? He Jinghu asked. I believe there was too much uncertainty. At that time, our dozen or so members of Dark Knight wouldn't be able to ensure the safety of over 20,000 civilians, Shen Wengang explained. Did you know it would be safer to stay here? He Jinghu asked. Yes, I believe it's safer to stay, Shen Wengang said. Then tell me, why did those dung beetles disappear? And what about that iron tower? He Jinghu asked, assuming Shen Wengang had admitted it. Director I don't understand what you're talking about. The dung beetles disappeared. Shen Wengang asked. He didn't know about this news when he was detained, so pretending to be ignorant was plausible. You don't know. He Jinghu frowned, feeling that this Yan gang was very dishonest. I don't know. You don't think I was responsible for the disappearance of those dung beetles, do you? Shen Wengang asked. You don't have the ability. We suspect this matter is related to the Hultung Commerce Association. He Jinghu glanced at him and said, related to the Hultung Commerce Association? That's unlikely, isn't it? Shen Wengang asked. Puzzled, He Jinghu didn't answer him. Director since you suspect it's related to the Hultung Commerce Association, why don't you contact them directly? Shen Wengang continued to ask. Someone has already gone to ask, He Jinghu said. Alright, Shen Wengang said. Commander Yan, is there something you need on the phone? Yan Zhangping's call connected, and Niu Xingwang's voice came from the other end of the line. Chairman Niu, there's something I need to verify with you, Yan Zhangping asked. Since Bai Liji's return, Yan Zhangping no longer contacted Dongfang Chen directly through his own phone, as the risk was a bit too high. Oh, Commander Yan, please speak, Niu Xingwang, also knowing what was going on, cooperated. Do you know someone named Tian Gang? Yan Zhangping asked. Tian Gang? Doesn't ring a bell. I know Tian Shan, Niu Xingwang said. Yan Zhangping was speechless. This Niu Xingwang could really put on an act. He also knew Tian Shan, who is the chairman of the mercenary guild. Think about it carefully, Yan Zhangping emphasized. Really doesn't ring a bell. The name is too unique. If I hadn't heard it, I definitely wouldn't forget it, Niu Xingwang replied. Did you send people to the country of Ulan? Yan Zhangping asked. This. Commander Yan, why are you suddenly asking this? Niu Xingwang stammered. It really is you. Confess honestly, what's going on? Yan Zhangping said sternly. This. Commander Yan, this is my personal matter. Please don't ask, Niu Xingwang replied, sounding troubled. The Chinese army has already entered Bado City. This is no longer your personal matter, Yan Zhangping said, so that's how it is. Our people reported seeing what looked like the Chinese army in Bado City. I thought they were mistaken, Niu Xingwang said. Stop trying to deceive me. Tell me exactly what's going on, and hurry, Yan Zhangping urged. The thing is, some time ago, a small clerk from the military and political department, I don't know which department, came to me and said my son was with him. So I went to Kyoto and brought my son back. But my son had been tortured beyond recognition, Niu Xingwang said, sobbing as he spoke. Chairman Niu, I understand your feelings. But the situation is urgent, so please get to the point, Yan Zhangping said. After all, the man's son was injured, so Yan Zhangping couldn't urge him too directly and had to say something sympathetic. Oh, good. You know, we have some technical capabilities here. After examining him, we discovered that several organs in my son's body had been transplanted. The person who examined him said he had been used for human experiments, Niu Xingwang said. Filled with righteous indignation, Niu Xingwang didn't say it directly. The so-called technical capabilities and the person who examined him actually referred to Dongfang Chen. They both knew what was going on, so there was no need to be so blunt. What? Are you saying the military and political department is conducting human experiments? That's impossible, Yan Zhangping directly denied. Please hear me out. The person who examined him said that someone in the northwest region was conducting cyborg experiments and might be able to find a way to treat my son. So I sent people there, and it's been 3 or 4 days now, Niu Xingwang said. Chapter 317. It is indeed Huitung Chamber of Commerce. Alright, let's put other matters aside for now. Since your people are in Bardo City, they will be temporarily under the command of the military, Yan Zhangping said. Commander Yan, alright. I hope you can say a few good words for us in the council, so they won't hold us responsible for crossing the border without permission, Niu Xingwang said. Understood. After saying that, Yan Zhangping hung up the phone. Yan Zhangping wasn't foolish enough to believe Niu Xingwang's nonsense. He knew very well that this matter must have been instigated by Dongfang Chen. Their trip to Ulan country must have another purpose, definitely not to find a cure. However, It wasn't convenient to contact Dongfang Chen now, and there was no need to question him immediately. He just needed to know the answer and a reasonable explanation. Yan Xiangping hung up the phone and re-entered the conference room. Everyone looked at him, waiting for his answer. It's been confirmed. It's indeed the Huatuang Business Association, Yan Xiangping said. What? This Huatuang Business Association is simply acting recklessly. They crossed the border without reporting to the council. If they provoke an international dispute, can they bear the responsibility? Liu Fiang immediately started to criticize. Then, Councilman Liu, please answer first. What exactly happened to Chairman Liu's son? Yan Xiangping looked at him and asked, his son? What does this have to do with his son? Liu Fiang was stunned. Chairman Liu said that your people found his son. And he was used for human experiments? Is that true? Yan Xiangping asked. This, Liu Fiang glanced at biology, then sat back in his seat without saying a word. Yan Xiangping noticed this detail and looked at biology. Biology came back later and didn't know what was going on at all, so he frowned. Yan Xiangping understood that this matter was probably not authorized by biology. If it had been done before, it was probably done by that imposter. If that was the case, this issue is not suitable for discussion in a public setting. Let's put this issue aside for now. Councilman Yan, what did Huatuang Business Association say? Biology asked. Huatuang Business Association agreed to temporarily hand over the people to our command? Yan Xiangping said. Well, that's good. Councilman Shentu, then the next action will be handed over to you, Biology said. Yes, Councilman Shentu replied. Bardo City, Ulahan District. An anti-gravity aircraft without wings arrived near the Iron Tower and slowly landed. Shentu's Heng Hao knew that the people from Huatuang Business Association had arrived, and sent someone to take them to the command center. Report, Commander. The people have arrived, a soldier reported outside the command center. The space in the command center was relatively small, so the group could only wait outside. Shentu's Heng Hao walked out after hearing the report. Commander, a person saw Shentu's Heng Hao walking out, strode forward, and shouted excitedly, You are? Shentu's Heng Hao asked. The person unbuttoned his combat uniform with one click, revealing his face, stood at attention, saluted, and said, Reporting, former Captain Dai Zheng. Directly under the Raptor Commando of the Northwest Military Region Command, reporting to you, so it's you. When did you go to Huatuang Business Association? Shentu's Heng Hao asked with a smile, reporting, Commander, after the virus outbreak. I went to Binjiang to look for my son and joined them by chance, Dai Zheng said with a slightly embarrassed smile. Shentu's Heng Hao was the person he respected the most, but at this moment, he concealed part of the truth. He didn't actually join the business association, but joined Dongfang Chen's base special operations team. However, Dongfang Chen's affairs involved too much, so he had to hide it. Shentu's Heng Hao nodded and continued to ask, Did you build that iron tower? Yes, Dai Zheng nodded affirmatively. What is it for? Shentu's Heng Hao asked. Commander, to be honest, I only have a vague understanding. One of our tasks in Bardo City is to deploy this thing here, Dai Zheng explained. Then the disappearance of the dung beetles, is it related to this iron tower? Shentu's Heng Hao asked. This, I'm not too sure, I think it should be, Dai Zheng replied with shame. Shentu's Heng Hao glanced at him, feeling annoyed. So he also knows nothing. Dai Zheng should indeed be ashamed. He clearly knew, but he just couldn't say it. Dongfang Chen was worried that Dai Zheng would not be able to control himself and would reveal everything, so he specifically told him before leaving. According to Dongfang Chen, speaking the right thing at the wrong time often leads to the wrong result. The existence of nanobots cannot be made public, otherwise the Huatuang Business Association will be completely resisted, and it will be difficult for the base to develop. Now, the Huatuang Business Association has shown its prominence, and the exposed strength has already made the higher-ups very jealous. Fortunately, the products and services they launched have always been moderate and have been developed around people's livelihood, so although some people occasionally cause trouble, the overall situation is still good. This time, Dongfang Chen sent the special operations team to Ulan country with two real purposes. The first is to investigate the truth about the artificial manipulation of the VO. The second is to explore the real situation in Ulan country. He had a bold idea, to secretly occupy Ulan country. But the prerequisite was that Ulan country was already destroyed. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318, Plan Ahead. Don't put all your eggs in one basket currently. Both the Huatong Business Association and the Mercenary Guild are just starting out and are facing various constraints. The game between people is 100 or 1,000 times more difficult than simply developing a base no matter when. The difficult part is never the technology, but the people. Take the Huatong Business Association as an example. You want to establish bases in various settlements, but will the management of these settlements cooperate with you? Will they listen to your commands? Will they obediently hand over resources and crystal cores? There are only two ways to get them to cooperate. Either conquer them with force, or constantly expand your influence so that they need you. Conquest by force seems simple and direct, but in reality, it has considerable after effects. First of all, where there is oppression, there is resistance. How many people and resources would it take to violently suppress all the settlements in the country? Where would these people and resources come from? Moreover, you would have to be on guard against sabotage day and night, requiring continuous high-pressure rule. Furthermore, under this approach, people have no initiative. You would have to provide all the construction costs for the bases and the living expenses for the settlement residents, which would be a bottomless pit. Secondly, what's the point of doing this? Establishing bases and settlements is originally to complete the space station mission and ensure the survival of humanity. Moreover, this is originally a mutually beneficial thing, but the result of violent conquest is that you have to do everything yourself, which is simply thankless. Therefore, resorting to force is the least desirable option. For example, during the zombie rat crisis, the council would find ways to get crystal cores to purchase ultrasonic transmitters. But if a violent conquest method is adopted, who would provide the crystal cores? If the council doesn't find a way, it would be impossible to deploy the micro queen bee in a short time. Originally, it was a mutually beneficial thing. But just because you think it's beneficial doesn't mean others will think so. Will the council think so? Obviously not. Even if you take too big of a step and threaten the power of the settlement management, even the settlements will resist you. Everyone hopes that the people can be stable and peaceful under their rule, but the prerequisite is under their rule. Without this prerequisite, no one will willingly cooperate with you. Therefore, the most stable method is to constantly expand your influence so that everyone needs you. However, the expansion of influence also has a bottleneck. This bottleneck is the maximum value of influence that the council can accept from civilian forces. If it exceeds this value, the council will find ways to weaken and suppress it to ensure stability. There are two ways to break through this bottleneck. One is to strive for council seats, and a sufficient number of them transforms civilian forces into official forces. Through this method, this is a game process that requires continuous effort. The other is to confront the council on an equal footing. This method faces greater resistance and is accompanied by struggle and sacrifice. The business association has not yet reached this crossroads of choice, but it is not far off. The first batch of 20 business association and guild branches in the settlements have been completed and put into operation, and at least dozens more settlements will be opened next. Now that the business association's reputation has been established, the construction of branches will definitely be smooth sailing by the end of this year. It is conservatively estimated that the business association branches will cover more than 80% of the settlements. This is a good thing, but also a bad thing. When the influence reaches this level, it is already the limit for civilian forces. Next, without a doubt, the council will not sit idly by and watch the economy, livelihood, and resources of whole country be controlled by a single civilian force, and will inevitably take over. Therefore, Dongfang Chen must have a plan in advance. As the saying goes, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Therefore, on the one hand, he must plan to arrange for his own people to enter the council, and on the other hand, he must prepare for the worst. Yulan country is a good choice. It is large enough, rich in mineral resources, sparsely vegetated, and not close to the sea. If an underground base is built there, it could become a good trump card. What other tasks do you have? Shen Zhenghao asked. There is also the task of investigating the specific situation of Bardo City, mainly to find the specific location of the cyborg laboratory. Dai Zhang replied. Did you find it? Shen Zhenghao asked. Found it? Dai Zhang nodded. Good. That's great. Hearing Dai Zhang's answer, Shen Zhenghao's gloomy mood was swept away. Tell me quickly, where's it? Shen Zhenghao asked. In a temple 10 kilometers north of Bardo City. Dai Zhang replied. Senior brother, something bad happened. Our dung beetle, Qianglong, Legion has been blocked. Ling Su rushed in and said dung beetle is the scientific name for scarab beetle. Blocked? Impossible. The dung beetle Legion is definitely the nemesis of tanks. They can't be blocked. Ling Yuan didn't believe it at all. It's true. Look. Ling Su handed over a tablet computer. Ling Yuan took the computer and clicked play. The video was taken from behind the dung beetle army. From the picture, it can be clearly seen that there seems to be an invisible barrier in front of the army. constantly absorbing every dung beetle that enters the barrier, and then forming a very clear dividing line there. Chapter 319, Ants Have Armor. What's there? Ling Bian asked, seemingly to Ling Su, yet also to himself. Senior brother, I don't know either, Ling Su replied. What's there? Ling Bian looked at the screen, still asking. Senior brother, Ling Su wanted to comfort him, but didn't know what to say. What's there? What exactly is there? This is impossible. How could it disappear? Ling Bian still refused to believe it, constantly talking to himself. Senior brother, don't be like this, it's just a small accident, Ling Su anxiously comforted. Right. You're right, it's just a small accident. Ling Bian heard these words. Ling Su, immediately order the Dung Beetle Legion to cease their attack and set up camp on the periphery, Ling Bian instructed. Okay. I'll go now. Ling Su acknowledged the order and turned to leave soon. The Dung Beetles stopped attacking. They moved in a small area outside the circular boundary, not a single one crossing the line. Inside Shen Tuzhenghao's command center, in a temple? How many people are there? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Less than 3,000, mostly researchers and some imprisoned civilians, not much combat power, Dai Zhang replied. Then have you found out where the captured Huaxia citizens are being held? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Not this, Dai Zhang shook his head. Do you know about the residents of the Bei and Sumu settlement being abducted? Shen Tuzhenghao suddenly felt something was wrong. This. I don't know. Dai Zhang almost slipped up and quickly denied it. According to Niu Xingwang's explanation, Dai Zhang and his group were there to investigate the modified human laboratory, and since they weren't an official organization, they shouldn't know about this. Since you don't know, why did you say not this? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Just haven't found any other Huaxia citizens. Dai Zhang wasn't good at lying and immediately became a little nervous. Which places have you investigated? Shen Tuzhenghao asked, picking up a tablet. The tablet displayed a map of the entire Bado city. We've investigated the entire Bado city, Dai Zhang said. What? Investigated everything? Shen Tuzhenghao didn't quite believe it. The efficiency was too high. He knew very well that even Dark Knight didn't have such efficiency. That's right, Dai Zhang replied. In fact, they didn't need to investigate at all. They only needed to place the queen bee here, and they didn't need to worry about anything else. In less than a day, the queen bee could clearly investigate the entire city at the same time. The queen bee would share the investigation results with them in real time. Therefore, it couldn't be said that Dongfang Chen's special forces team was much stronger than the Dark Knight team. It could only be said that the technology they possessed wasn't on the same dimension, so there was no comparison. Then tell me, what have you investigated? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Dai Zhang wore digital eye pupils and could check the investigation results at any time, so answering this kind of question was easy. You see, this is the Gaol district, this is the main road in the city, here, and here. There are several department stores and large underground parking lots. These places are gathering tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of armored ants. And, Dai Zhang took the tablet and introduced it skillfully. Wait. What do you mean by armored ants? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Oh, this is a name I came up with myself. They are mutated ants, but unlike mutated ants, they are equipped with light and heavy firepower. There are also some ants equipped with steel armor. So I came up with a name, called armored ants, Dai Zhang explained, his tone casual, but these words sounded like a thunderclap in Shen Tuzhenghao's ears. Ants with armor? Shen Tuzhenghao asked loudly, his face full of disbelief. I didn't believe it at first, but that's the way it is, so I have to believe it, Dai Zhang said. How is this possible? Have the ants become spirits? Shen Tuzhenghao still didn't believe it. Commander, in my opinion, the ants haven't become spirits. According to my judgment, the armor and weapons should have been installed by humans, Dai Zhang said. Putting weapons on ants? Would the ants use them? Shen Tuzhenghao continued to ask, his eyes wide. This was like hearing a heavenly book, unheard of, unseen. Commander, haven't you noticed? Why did those dung beetles attack us in unison? Don't you find it strange? Dai Zhang asked. In fact, Dai Zhang didn't have this kind of brain, but someone behind him was teaching him. You're right. The behavior of the dung beetles is somewhat similar to that of the pikas. Oh, we only discovered the pikas a few days ago. They have a unified pace, as if they are being controlled by someone, Shen Tuzhenghao explained. That's right. Since the dung beetles and the pikas you mentioned can be controlled artificially, why can't ants? Dai Zhang said. Shen Tuzhenghao nodded, indicating his approval. So, it's not that the ants themselves know how to fire guns, but that someone is controlling everything, Dai Zhang said okay. Dai Zhang finally shared the information with Shen Tuzhenghao with his clumsy eloquence. Chapter 320 Attempt to attack from underground. Is the information reliable? Shen Tuzhenghao asked to confirm. Absolutely reliable, Dai Zhang replied with certainty. Shen Tuzhenghao paced back and forth in the cramped command center, contemplating something. Report. Just then, a soldier ran in to report. Speak, Shen Tuzhenghao said. Reporting, Commander. Those dung beetles have stopped attacking, the soldier reported. Is that so? Shen Tuzhenghao walked to the screen and looked at the image in the picture. The dung beetles surrounded the border, no longer charging inward. All right, I understand. You may leave, Shen Tuzhenghao replied. Yes, the soldier acknowledged and left. Shen Tuzhenghao wasn't surprised by this. Since it was being manipulated artificially, any situation could arise. Commander, we have detected other situations as well, Dai Zhang reminded. Really? Speak quickly, Shen Tuzhenghao urged. Upon hearing Dai Zhang's words, we have also detected a large number of zombies, as many as 1 million, Dai Zhang said. Zombies? Right in Bardo City, Shen Tuzhenghao asked. Yes, Dai Zhang nodded. Can this iron tower defend against zombies? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. He wasn't afraid of zombies themselves, but he feared that the zombies were also being manipulated. It was daytime now, so it was definitely fine. But if 1 million zombies swarmed in at night, Shen Tuzhenghao wasn't confident he could withstand it. Moreover, they were currently surrounded by dung beetles, making it impossible to move. Yes, Dai Zhang answered. You remember where they're all hiding? Shen Tuzhenghao asked. I remember. Dai Zhang nodded in response. Shen Tuzhenghao looked at him with a strange expression, feeling like this kid had become smarter. When they were in the army before, how come he hadn't noticed? Then mark them all out, Shen Tuzhenghao said, handing over the tablet. Yes, Commander. Dai Zhang took the tablet and began to operate it. Shen Tuzhenghao watched from the side. 15 minutes later, the marking was complete. Dai Zhang handed the tablet back. Is there anything else? Shen Tuzhenghao asked, taking the tablet. No more, Dai Zhang said. In fact, Dai Zhang had another mission, which was to investigate the truth behind the Pikas being manipulated. However, he couldn't reveal this purpose, and since he hadn't found any clues yet, there was no point in mentioning it now. It seemed that not only Pikas, but also dung beetles and ants were being manipulated. This was quite intriguing. It indicated that the enemy's technology for controlling animals had universal applicability. What method are they using to achieve this? Dongfang Chen sat in the base, pondering this question. He had already ordered the Queen Bee to search the entire Bardo City area, but found no suspicious master control equipment. He didn't believe in supernatural events, nor did he believe that these low-level creatures had more advanced intelligence than others of their kind. Behind all of this, someone was definitely manipulating things from behind the scenes, but how were they controlling them? Whether it was his bee ant robots, nanobots, or even simulation robots, all of these required a master control program. Without a master control program, they were just a disorganized mess, unable to do anything. But where exactly was their master control? What form did it take? There was another point that Dongfang Chen couldn't understand. Living things have their own habits. Animals like Pikas are not social creatures. They don't need a queen like ants or bees. These animals survive independently. What caused them to act collectively? So, finding the other party's master control wasn't the most difficult part. The most difficult part was that he didn't even know what form the other party's master control took. In other words, he didn't even know what he was looking for. Alright, then go and rest for a bit. I'll call you if anything comes up, Shen Tuzhenghao said. Yes, Commander. Dai Zhang saluted and left. After Dai Zhang left, Shen Tuzhenghao took out his phone and called Bai Li Ji. Counselor Bai Li, I have a situation to report. On the other side, Ling Bian was still carefully pondering in his office. That glowing iron tower, whatever it was, had completely disrupted his plans. He looked at the images on the computer while rubbing a white object in his hand, not saying a word. Ling Su stood behind him, not daring to make the slightest sound at this moment, for fear of disrupting his train of thought. Su, what do you think would happen if we attacked from underground? Ling Bian suddenly asked. Senior brother, are you saying we should dig a tunnel and drill over from underneath? Ling Su asked. That's what I mean, Ling Bian replied. I think we can try it. Ling Su replied after thinking for a moment. Alright, then let's try it. Go and arrange it, Ling Bian said. It was clear that Ling Su was controlling those insects and animals. Okay, I'll go now. Ling Su nodded and left soon. The dung beetles in the picture began to move. Chapter 321 A Lucky Decision. The dung beetles closest to the boundary began to dig into the soil, burrowing downwards. 1, 2, 3, more and more dung beetles started digging, raising an increasingly thick cloud of dust on the outer side of the boundary. On the other side of the screen, Shen Tuzhenghao was on the phone when he happened to see the scene on the screen. "Quick, get Daizhang here for me." Shen Tuzhenghao immediately hung up the phone and shouted outside. He didn't know if this iron tower could defend against attacks from underground soon. Daizhang ran over. "Report." Daizhang shouted from outside the door. "Enter." Shen Tuzhenghao replied. Daizhang walked into the command center. "Daizhang, I'm asking you. Can your iron tower block attacks coming from beneath the ground?" Shen Tuzhenghao asked anxiously. "It can." Daizhang nodded solemnly. "Oh. That's good." Shen Tuzhenghao finally breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing Daizhang's affirmative answer. With a queen bee present, underground attacks were nothing to fear. "However, Commander, this iron tower can't withstand threats from the air. If they launch an aerial strike, we'll have a hard time dealing with it." Daizhang added. "That's alright, their artillery has already been destroyed by us. There shouldn't be any aerial threats in the short term." Shen Tuzhenghao said. Daizhang nodded and said nothing more. Since the dung beetle's attack was underground, it was impossible to visually assess the effectiveness of the attack at this time. However, Shen Tuzhenghao felt much more at ease with Daizhang saying that everything was fine. Meanwhile, Ling Bian was still waiting for the results. He could only see dung beetles constantly burrowing into the ground, but no dung beetles emerged on the other side of the boundary. His intuition told him that this method might not work. "Senior brother," Ling Su ran in anxiously. "Did it fail?" Ling Bian was already mentally prepared. "Yes. It's still the same. The dung beetles that get close to that boundary disappear inexplicably." Ling Su nodded and said, "Have you tried digging the hole deeper?" Ling Bian asked. "We tried. It didn't work." Ling Su replied. Ling Bian fell into deep thought again. This was completely different from what he had imagined. He had originally guessed that the invisible boundary might be a protective shield formed by the glowing iron tower. If that hypothesis held true, then the shield should be like a pot lid, covering everything from above. Although he was extremely unwilling to believe that such technology existed in this world, capable of creating a protective shield out of thin air, this explanation was the most reasonable given the scene before him. However, reality negated his hypothesis. This protective shield could actually penetrate underground, which was truly incomprehensible. But in reality, he had fallen into a misunderstanding, and his line of reasoning was completely wrong. There wasn't even a protective shield there at all. Even that iron tower was just a prop to mislead others. The same was true for the conflict between the Red Lotus sect and the Red Robe sect in Mo Prefecture last time. The glowing aircraft or iron tower in the middle were only there to make it easier for people to understand the disappearance of the zombies and these dung beetles, and served no other purpose. Clearly, everyone who didn't know the truth had been led astray. Everyone believed that the iron tower was blocking the dung beetles' advance. Damn it! Ling Bian slammed his fist on the table. That invisible protective shield had tightly surrounded the Huaguo army in the middle, and he couldn't think of a way to deal with it for the time being. "Senior brother, why don't we try attacking from the air?" Ling Su suggested. She didn't have much confidence when she said this. She was just saying it out of concern because she didn't want to see her senior brother so distressed. Even the underground is so heavily defended, it's even more impossible to attack from the air. Ling Bian shook his head and decisively gave up trying. There was another reason why he was unwilling to try. All the artillery stationed in Bado City had been sacrificed by him as bait for the Huaguo army. Otherwise, wouldn't those artillery pieces have been able to carry out aerial strikes? But he couldn't admit that he had miscalculated this step, because his pride was too strong. Ling Su nodded and didn't think much about it. Ling Bian thought so, and so did she. According to their normal understanding, the underground must be more difficult to defend than the air. If the protective shield wanted to penetrate underground, it would definitely require more energy. There was no reason why the underground was so heavily defended while the air was not off. They knew that the iron tower was just a prop and there was no aerial defense at all. Wouldn't they be so angry that they vomited blood? Ling Bian was extremely anxious at this time. He had painstakingly lured the Huaguo army to Bado City and successfully surrounded them. But he just couldn't take this piece of meat that was already in his mouth. How could he not be anxious? Then, why don't we try using the Giant Ant Legion? Ling Su asked. The Giant Ant Legion that Ling Su was referring to was the armored ants. They also can't get in. What, do you mean attacking directly from the outside? Ling Bian was about to say they couldn't get in, but he suddenly realized what she meant. That's right. But I don't know if that boundary can defend against bullets, Ling Su said uncertainly. It doesn't matter, we can try it. Go and do it quickly. Ling Bian urged they would soon realize how fortunate this decision was. Chapter 322, Earth-Penetrating Missile Airstrike. Shen Zhuzhenghao and Bai Liji reconnected by phone, and he immediately sent the location information marked by Dai Zhang back to the council. He needed to request an aerial strike from the council. Night was approaching, and once it fell, the zombies would be able to come out and move around. Once they were out, it would be even more difficult to completely eliminate them. Moreover, the armored ants that Dai Zhang mentioned could join the battle at any time. If they attacked, they would become sitting ducks. The best course of action was to launch an aerial strike directly on the zombies' hiding places, which would eliminate them at the smallest cost. Shen Zhuzhenghao quickly obtained authorization. 23 DCS-6 ground-penetrating missiles were launched from a missile base in the northwest military region. He wanted to destroy those armored ants and zombies in one fell swoop. The DCS-6 ground-penetrating missile could reach a speed of 1 km per second, and it would take only a dozen minutes to reach Bado City after being launched from the northwest military region. However, these 23 missiles were destined to be a wasted effort. While Dai Zhang was revealing this information, the Queen Bee had already begun attacking several places where the zombies were hiding. It needed those crystal cores to develop here. More than 1 million zombies meant at least 1 million crystal cores, which was enough for the Queen Bee to build a small-scale underground base here on the other side. After Ling Su obtained Ling Bian's consent, she began to mobilize the giant ant legion to advance towards the Ulahan district. This decision just happened to prevent the ants from being wiped out. When the giant ant legion began to move, Dai Zhang received the news report. Dai Zhang hurried to find Shen Zhuzhenghao. Enter. Shen Zhuzhenghao had already issued the launch order. Commander, there's a situation. Those armored ants have moved out, Dai Zhang said. What? Shen Zhuzhenghao stood up abruptly. It's true. They are on their way here now, and I'm afraid the aerial strike will not be effective, Dai Zhang said. When did this happen? Shen Zhuzhenghao asked. Probably a dozen minutes ago, Dai Zhang said. Shen Zhuzhenghao looked at his watch. He had only issued the order 5 minutes ago. Therefore, the possibility of a leak was ruled out, and it should just be a coincidence. Alice, Shen Zhuzhenghao sighed. Unfortunately, the missiles had already been launched and could not be recalled. Commander, what's wrong? Dai Zhang asked. Shen Zhuzhenghao glanced at him, didn't answer, but said, the battle in Bado City will not end in a short time. I need you to carry out another mission. Commander, please give your orders, Dai Zhang said, standing at attention. There are still nearly 100,000 citizens of China whose whereabouts are unknown. I hope you can find out as soon as possible, Shen Zhuzhenghao said. Yes. I guarantee to complete the mission, Dai Zhang replied. We also captured more than a dozen prisoners before. You can take a few and see if you can get some useful information, Shen Zhuzhenghao said. That's great. With these prisoners, I think it will be much easier, Dai Zhang replied. Don't be too optimistic. These prisoners are modified humans, very tight-lipped, and the information they provide needs to be carefully identified for its authenticity. Don't underestimate the enemy, lest you suffer a big loss. Shen Zhuzhenghao reminded their current encirclement in Bado City was related to the false information provided by the female modified human. Don't worry, Commander, I know what to do, Dai Zhang said confidently. Okay, then go. Shen Zhuzhenghao waved his hand. Dai Zhang saluted and left. More than a dozen minutes later, 20-odd missiles arrived in Bado City. 20-odd locations in the Geller district and the Shur district exploded simultaneously, with loud rumbling sounds. The ground trembled violently. The attack targets did not include the temple in the northern part of Bado City. There were still more than 3,000 people there, and it was inhumane to bomb it directly. Subsequently, Shen Zhuzhenghao ordered all 60,000 simulated spider robots to be dispatched. At the same time, some flying robots were also dispatched to investigate the movements of the armored ants. The advantages of simulated spider robots are their high mobility and extremely tacit cooperative combat capabilities. Therefore, waiting for the armored ants to come to their door here was too passive, and Shen Zhuzhenghao decided to take the initiative. Those dung beetles posed no threat to the simulated spider robots, so their existence could be completely ignored because he knew the hiding places of those armored ants in advance. Shen Zhuzhenghao could also roughly judge their movements. In this way, the simulated spider robots could completely intercept them halfway and annihilate them one by one. The situation was similar to what he had expected. The flying robots quickly transmitted the images back, and the armored ants were crawling south simultaneously on multiple streets. However, because they were equipped with various armors and thermal weapons, their speed was very slow, very slow. It was estimated to be about the same as a person's walking speed. The Baylor district is located directly north of the Xiaolin district and is relatively close, while the Sihur district is located northwest of the Xiaolin district and is relatively far away. Therefore, it was impossible for the armored ants to arrive in the Xiaolin district at the same time, which created very convenient conditions for the simulated spider robots to carry out annihilation one by one. Chapter 323 Ling Su adjusts attack route. What was that sound just now? Ling Yuan asked after Ling Su came in. Senior brother, all of our giant ant legion gathering points were simultaneously attacked, almost leading to complete annihilation. Ling Su replied gloomily. She blamed herself a little, feeling like she was holding Ling Yuan back. What? How much damage? Ling Yuan asked, greatly alarmed. The giant ant legion left in advance, so there was almost no damage, but the zombies should have all been eliminated. Ling Su said. Why did she say should? It was because she couldn't control ordinary low-level zombies, so she wasn't sure about the specific losses. However, since even the Tier 3 zombies couldn't be contacted, the low-level ones probably didn't have many left. That's good. Ling Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. Zombies were actually dispensable to him after taking over Wulan country. Those zombies lost their usefulness. He relied most on the three major legions controlled by Ling Su, the Rat Rabbit Legion, the Dung Beetle Legion, and the Giant Ant Legion. Of course, he also had his own trump card. His trump card was the modified humans. Strange, how could they know our deployment so accurately? Ling Yuan said, I'm not sure either. So far, no traces of Huaxia people have been found in the Baylor district or the Zhor district. Ling Su shook her head. To be able to pinpoint their location without anyone scouting was a bit unreasonable. Do you think they might know our hiding place? Ling Yuan asked. Senior brother, how about, let's retreat quickly. I don't think it's very safe here either. Ling Su mustered her courage and said she believed that if Huaxia had the ability to destroy the giant ant gathering points, they would naturally have the ability to destroy them here. Of course we're going to retreat, but now is not the time, Ling Yuan said. But what if there are missiles? Ling Su didn't continue. Don't worry, Huaxia has always prided itself on being a benevolent army. There are so many people here, they won't do that. Ling Yuan comforted her. Ling Su nodded, saying nothing more. However, it was clear that she was still very worried. She wasn't worried about herself, but mainly worried that Ling Yuan would be in danger like most girls in love. Her whole heart was on Ling Yuan. The Giant Ant Legion had already begun to encounter the simulated spider robots head-on. The simulated spider robots used buildings as cover, launching ambushes simultaneously in multiple locations. Tens of thousands of robots occupied the high ground, simultaneously opening fire, using their numbers to quickly wreak the lives of the armored ants. Ling Su realized something was wrong and quickly adjusted her strategy. The Giant Ant Legion stopped advancing and began to assemble. The urban area was narrow, and the armored ants were very slow, so it was very disadvantageous to engage in street fighting with those spider robots. In this situation she adjusted the marching route, first advancing south from the Zhor district, entering the Bogda Mountains, and then passing through the Bogda Mountains to enter the Wulan district. This would avoid a head-on encounter with the simulated spider robots ambushing in the Baylor district. If the Huaxia military wanted to intercept, they would have to go to the Bogda Mountains. There, the population was sparse, and there were no obstacles, so the robots' advantages would be greatly reduced. But this adjustment also came at a price. The armored ants in the Baylor district had to first enter the Zhor district to the east, and this journey would be very difficult. The simulated spider robots would constantly harass them from behind, and the losses would be very serious. However, Ling Su couldn't care so much. Let them die if they died. Dai Zhang had also set off. The anti-gravity aircraft slowly rose, flew out of the protective range of the Iron Tower, and headed north on the orders of Shinta Zhanghao. He was going to investigate the detention location of the remaining nearly 100,000 Huaxia people. Taking this opportunity, he would also continue to carry out Dongfang Chen's mission, to investigate the truth about those animals being artificially controlled. In addition to the base special forces members, there were also 5 modified human prisoners that Shinta Zhanghao had given him on the plane. Can anyone answer? Where are those Huaxia people you captured earlier being held? Dai Zhang asked after coming to the holding area of the 5 prisoners after the plane took off. He was just asking symbolically, basically not holding any hope that they would confess. Sure enough, no one answered. It's all the better that you don't cooperate, so I can see how powerful this medicine is, Dai Zhang said, taking out an injection. This injection was what Dongfang Chen often used to scare people during interrogations, but it had only been useful once Dongfang Chen told him that this medicine was very strong, and ordinary people couldn't stand it, so he had always been very curious. Let me see, how about him? Give him the injection, Dai Zhang said. Handing the injection to a Special Forces member, the Special Forces member took the injection and walked towards the prisoner. The prisoner looked very panicked, wanting to struggle and avoid it, but he was tied too tightly to escape. The Special Forces member bit off the protective cap and simply and neatly stabbed it in at most 5 seconds. The drug took effect. Chapter 324. This physique is not good. In no more than 5 seconds, the drug took effect. AWW, the modified human exhaled deeply. It was clear he felt extremely comfortable. His whole body relaxed, and he lay on the floor like a lump of mud, closing his eyes to quietly enjoy it. A blissful smile appeared on his face immediately afterward. A pool of light yellow liquid flowed from his crotch, indicating he had lost control of his bladder and bowels. Dongfang Chen said this was a type of neurotoxin that could fundamentally relax the nerves of the injected person. Dai Zhang couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw this scene. Just how relaxed did you have to be to even lose control of your bladder? Less than a minute after experiencing the pleasant sensation, the situation suddenly changed. The modified human began to tremble. At first, the trembling was relatively slight, with only his hands and feet shaking rapidly. Soon, this trembling intensified, and the whole person looked like they were being electrocuted, shaking violently. Woolulu woolulu. Accompanied by the trembling, he made whimpering sounds from his mouth. He suddenly screamed. Looking even more pained, he rolled around on the ground with all his might, looking like he wished he were dead. This was the roller coaster that Dongfang Chen had mentioned. The brief moment of pleasure was followed by doubled pain. This pain came from every neuron, throughout the entire body, from the inside out. Every cell would feel that intense pain, amplified dozens of times. And the most terrifying thing was that, under this stimulating interference, a person's various emotions, such as joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness, would erupt at the same time. What would it look like when great joy and great sorrow played out at the same time? This was it right here. The modified human struggled, looking like he was unusually excited and extremely mournful at the same time, making it impossible to tell whether he was happy or sad. He laughed and screamed madly, drool incessantly flowing from the corners of his mouth. His eyes were wide open, and his 2 eyeballs were filled with blood, feeling like they could burst out of their sockets. Tears gushed from the corners of his eyes, streaming down his face. After struggling for about 10 minutes, he began to calm down due to excessive physical exhaustion. This powerful stimulation was too much for him to handle, and he began to spew a large amount of white foam from his mouth. In the next few minutes, he twitched intermittently a few more times before completely passing out. Dai Zhang stepped forward and kicked him, but there was no reaction. Tisk tisk tisk, what a piece of crap for a modified human. His physique is terrible, Dai Zhang said mockingly. This thing is called Xiaolin. You've all seen it. 1 injection, and you'll definitely feel amazing. Next, who wants to try it? Dai Zhang took out another injection, held it in his hand, and asked the remaining 4 people. The 4 of them shuddered in unison upon hearing this. Look at how pathetic you are. You're a disgrace to modified humans. HMPH, 2, Dai Zhang mocked, pretending to spit on the ground, but actually spitting nothing out. I'll ask again, where are those Chinese people who were captured earlier being held? If no one answers, I'll choose someone at random. Dai Zhang continued. He seemed very indifferent, as if it didn't matter whether they spoke or not. It was precisely this indifferent attitude that made the few of them panic. Who should I choose? Dai Zhang rested his chin on his right hand, looking at the 4, pretending to think rather than thinking. It was more like letting the suspense build. The waiting process was the most agonizing for the 4 modified humans. You then. Dai Zhang chose another one, but he didn't choose the one who was trembling the most violently. I'll talk, the man shouted in fright upon seeing that he had been chosen, hurriedly expressing his willingness to speak. What is it that you're going to say? Too late, you should have spoken up earlier. Dai Zhang didn't give him a chance to confess. Inject him. Dai Zhang handed the drug to the special operations soldier next to him and ordered. The man screamed in fright, thrashing wildly. It looked like a pig being slaughtered. Regardless, the special operations soldier directly pinned the man down, raised his hand, and stabbed the needle. And the same scene played out again. First, a pleasant sensation, followed by loss of bladder and bowel control. Then, trembling, screaming, violent struggling, and finally, foaming at the mouth and passing out. The whole process took less than half an hour, too. You're even more trash. You couldn't even last half an hour. Dai Zhang kicked him again and cursed. Next, who wants to try it? Step forward yourself, Dai Zhang said, looking at the remaining 3. Of course, this was just a figure of speech. Even if they wanted to step forward, It was impossible because they were tied up like dumplings. I'll talk. The one who was trembling the most violently finally couldn't bear it any longer and hurriedly stated his position, fearing that he would be injected if he spoke too late. Hey. That's right. You're a smart kid, I appreciate you. Although you're a little timid, there are advantages to being timid, don't you think? Dai Zhang squatted in front of him and smiled. Yes, the man quickly responded. Look, how good is this? You two should learn from him. Dai Zhang looked at the other two and lectured. The other two also seemed to want to speak, but they weren't as shameless as the modified human in front of them. Chapter 325 is a nuclear bomb. However, you two don't need to be afraid. Listen to him carefully and think about whether you have anything to add. If you find that he is lying, you must also bravely expose him. In short, you must demonstrate your value. Do you understand? Dai Zhang said, as if encouraging them. The other two quickly nodded. They knew that if they didn't perform now, they wouldn't have another chance. Very good, let's begin then. Dai Zhang nodded in approval. First, tell me where the captured Chinese citizens are being held. Dai Zhang asked. In Yaktuk, but they may be transferred soon. The man answered without hesitation. Dai Zhang looked at the other two, and they quickly nodded, indicating their agreement with this answer. It seemed that the man was telling the truth with the other two supervising. The man probably wouldn't dare to talk nonsense. Dai Zhang nodded and used his digital eye to locate Yaktuk. He didn't know the geographical distribution of foreign countries at all. In Oris, Dai Zhang was stunned after searching. No. To be precise, South Yaktuk. North Yaktuk belongs to Oris, and South Yaktuk belongs to Ulan. The man explained. Dai Zhang nodded, indicating understanding. Yaktuk was a border city, formerly a trade hub between the two countries. The border between the two countries runs right through the center of the city. What do you mean when you say they are about to be transferred? Dai Zhang asked. It is said that this group of people is going to be used to produce cyborgs. And the cyborg laboratory is in Oris, so they will be transferred soon. The man explained. Produce. Dai Zhang found this word strange. Yes, produce. That's what they said, the man affirmed. Then what are they doing in Yaktuk? Dai Zhang asked. Waiting for the train. So many people can only be transported by rail, but the train hasn't arrived in Yaktuk yet, the man explained. How do you know the train hasn't arrived? Dai Zhang asked. There is a city called Norilsk north of Yaktuk. The railway line there is damaged, so the train can't get through. It's currently being repaired, the man said. When did this happen? Dai Zhang asked. The day before yesterday, the man replied. Where are these people planned to be transported to? Dai Zhang asked. Kultuk, the man said. So, you mean the cyborg laboratory is located in Kultuk? Dai Zhang asked. Yes, the man replied. Dai Zhang looked at the other two, and they nodded in agreement. It seemed that this information was also correct. Then what is the laboratory in Bado City used for? Dai Zhang asked. I'm not very clear about that, the man replied. As the man spoke, Dai Zhang used his digital eye to check the map. From the map, it could be seen that there was indeed a railway line between Ulan and Oris. This railway line started from Yaktuk, passed through Norilsk to the north, and then went west around Lake Baikal, reaching Kultuk, which was located in the southwest corner of Lake Baikal. In addition to Norilsk, it had to pass through at least a dozen small towns. What Dai Zhang didn't notice was that among these dozen small towns, one of them was Baikalsk, located on the shores of Lake Baikal. Chief, I have another situation to report, the man said proactively. Oh? Tell me, Dai Zhang said. Yesterday, one of our companions confessed that the cyborg laboratory was located in Baikalsk, but that was actually a lie to you. That place is a trap. The man said because these people were all present when Shen Zhanghao interrogated them yesterday. So they heard clearly what the female cyborg said. Of course, even if they didn't listen, they knew what the female cyborg said. Because these confessions were memorized in advance. However, Dai Zhang arrived later and was not aware of these things. What kind of trap? Dai Zhang asked. It is said to be a nuclear bomb, the man said, shivering. What? Dai Zhang was startled. If this thing exploded, it would be no joke. A city would be wiped out in minutes. He didn't doubt the accuracy of this information at all, because Oris itself was a nuclear power. These people had the ability to subvert the regime of a country, so it was understandable that they could get a nuclear bomb. Dai Zhang realized the seriousness of the problem, so he quickly called Shen Zhanghao. Commander, I have important information to report, Dai Zhang said after the call connected. Speak, Shen Zhanghao said. According to the prisoner's confession, Baikalsk is a trap. Please don't be fooled, Dai Zhang said. Yes, We already know this, Shen Zhenghao replied. This conclusion had already been reached in yesterday's meeting. That's good. Dai Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. What else did the prisoner confess? Shen Zhenghao asked. They said that the real location of the cyborg laboratory is Koltuk, in the southwest corner of Lake Baikal. Dai Zhang replied. Okay, I understand. I want to emphasize one thing, no matter what the reason, no matter what happens, you are forbidden from entering Oris territory, Shen Zhenghao said. Yes, Dai Zhang responded. This is what makes soldiers different. No matter what, whether they understand or not, they resolutely execute orders. According to our analysis, Baikalsk is a ticking time bomb. As long as we show any actions that are detrimental to Oris, that ticking time bomb will explode. Remember, Shen Zhenghao emphasized again, this is not because Yue is weak, but because if it leads to war between the two countries, the ultimate beneficiaries will be these cult members. This is what Yue does not want to see. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.